Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Sunday, the 12th of July, 2026. This is our 243rd Tafseer session. We are now on Surah Ar-Rum, Ayah 30. The format will be as follows. We have Tafseer, where ayahs are read and the professor gives explanation. And then following that, we have question and answers. And after that, we will have a more private Palestine update. The reason we have private Palestine updates is because we've had a number of issues with the channel previously being flagged and actually taken down, which was fun. So after we put that on private, and then it's later on uploaded to Rumble. So inshallah, just briefly, and also tomorrow we will be starting a new weekly halaqah instead of Tawheed, because we finished Tawheed now. All 4 volumes of Kitab Tawheed are now online, available for you to learn the entire subject. And the subject of Tawheed was presented in a way to build certain fundamental usuli points and to rebuttal, debunk, deconstruct, and supersede the flawed Wahhabi point of view, which has categorical errors to the point of contradicting and negating texts, being internally contradictory. The book leaves no room for doubt as to the errors of the Wahhabi doctrine. And what is the relevance of this? It's not just to score points. It is because it's through this vicious point of view that the huge swathes of the ummah are made takfir on, and entire resistance movements against the Crusaders have been derailed, while people preoccupy themselves with side ventures and issues that are not of the weight of takfir, and the ummah has lost numerous battles as a result of their meddling, and they are weaponized by the UAE and Al Saud. So this menace needs to be neutered in terms of the excesses of that point of view. If they change and become more moderated in their understanding, in line with the Kitab and Sunnah, then that is a win. And that is a win for the Ummah, inshallah. So that was the purpose of that halaqah, and you have everything there. 4 volumes, 81 episodes in detail, going through everything, something that reaches the level of compelling evidence. So we recommend not just that you listen to it yourselves, invite others to listen and to take notes and to study it thoroughly multiple times. The PDFs are available online, the first 3 volumes, so you can have that as reference as well. Or if you want to be generous and buy it, you can by all means, and in which case you'll have the 4th volume there on Amazon. And the issue and the importance is that you will have material, and you can propagate that material to get involved in this endeavor to build the proper understanding back. And tomorrow, because these halaqas we want to make regular in terms of not just one subject, we will be doing a series on accounting the rulers. So this was a book that the professor wrote many years ago. Much of the evidences, in fact, most of the evidence are still relevant, and the arguments are still relevant. So we've had it translated professionally, and we will be going through it in considerable detail. And a link will be put up for the actual PDF of the book as well, either on the day of the halaqah or slightly before it, in which case you can follow along in the text, and that will provide you with ample material to destroy the narrative of the Madakhila, inshallah. No problem. Okay, so bear with me a second as I situate myself. So, as I said, this is our 243rd halaqah, Tafsir halaqah. We are on Surah Ar-Rum, Ayah 26, which I will briefly recite and then hand over to the professor to provide explanation and clarification. وَلَهُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ كُلٌّ لَهُ كَانِتُونَ. Oh, and Professor, if you want me to read several of them out in chain, feel free to ask. And
No, just come here and read by yourself, and then we'll come to the next one. And the usual 2 translations first, and then.
Okay. So the first translation is, "For unto him belongs every being that is in heavens and on earth, all things devoutly obey his will. Next translation. To him belongs whoever is in the earth, in the heavens and earth, all are submissive to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
The meaning is clear. Only the one, maybe some comment on the ayah says, كل له قانتون. قانتون from قنata. Now, qanata has been, since the revelation of the Quran, used in many meanings. Plenty of them sanctioned by the Quran. It is there are various explanations. Some of them from the Prophet ﷺ, when say أفضل عبادة طول القنوت, that's standing up long in a pose of devotion, not just standing like a guarding a house or something like that. So standing seems to be essential in the matter of qunut. There's also sujood and ruku'. It has other connotations. So qanata, but also it may under a meaning as the first translator. What did he say? Standing in obedience or submitting in obedience.
He says, for unto him belongs every being that is in the heavens and the earth. All things devoutly obey his will. Yeah,
devoutly obey. That's one other possibility. Has nothing to do with the bodily position, because talk about things in heaven and earth. Not everything, but conscious things, because use man fi samawati wa fil ard. Man is used for beings which have a mind and agents there. You pay free agents, people with entities with mind and free will, sufficient to address by commands. So their obedience, devotional obedience, is based on their free will. They're doing it willingly, based on their understanding of the divine rank, and it's appropriate. Everything else, which is not conscious, is also devout in obedience, but by necessity, compelled, because it's nature, its own structure. And the other one translation is similar. So just the word qanata has been, and also that's where the word dua al-qunut. That's the dua which follows before ruku'. After ruku' is the differences between the various fiqh schools, but it's usually in standing. It's not to be said in ruku' or sujood. It is in standing. That's the dua al-qunut, and it's usually said in the night prayer, etc., etc. So this word qanata is having multiple connotation and tastes. So be careful about that. But here is the meaning is clear. Read the ayah again in Arabic and then read in English, just to clarify that further.
وله من في السماوات والأرض كل له قانتون.
So this says man fi samawati wal ard, the entities who can be addressed with man. Who is that? Who is this conscious being who can understand and can obey and disobey with sufficiently free will to be that. So humans, jinns, obviously, are essentially do not have a physical structure the way we know, or maybe some of them have, and they may be structured differently. Maybe they are four-legged creatures in another galaxy, like in Star Wars. Still, their qunut will be befitting for their bodily structure. So that's what devout obedience is really the core essential meaning of qunut. Okay, so that's an important point. So that's it for this ayah. It's almost self-explanatory with just the provision of, notice the difference between man and ma. Ma is anything, conscious or not conscious. La non-conscious, how can be la non-conscious devoutly obedient? By necessity, by the structure of the universe, by the law they obey. Because this law is created or enacted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and chosen for the universe. Because the universe could have other laws and other shapes. We could even envisage another universe with more than 3 dimensions. And as an ultimate result, because the theory that the universe is actually 10-dimensional, exclude this time variable, but there's an issue with that. But in physics, when they include the time dimension, so the universe is 4-dimensional, most likely this is a fallacy initiated by a theory of relativity. But it is 3-dimensional, the usual dimensional space dimensions. And then there are other 6, making it 9. So total of 9. But in the moment of creation, or infinitesimal close to it, it is unstable this way. That's by design. And then all other dimensions compactified down to into extremely small, beyond the visibility of our something like that Planck length, like small balls, and then they become essentially conservation laws and particles. And that's very complicated physics, but that's one theory. And there's another one which is we start with 23, the measure, something like that. This why 23? Because this is the only place where spring theory can work, either 10 or 23 or something like that. So it could have been the other one, and it collapsed down to that. So theoretically, mathematically, there are other possibilities, definitely. So there will be various unimaginable, for us, no unconceivable types of universes, but is present in the divine knowledge in eternity, and one of them chosen due to the divine wisdom and being the divine, the absolutely necessary, and pre-existing, and the one who is himself the absolute truth. There's no fallacy, no deficiency in his being, exalted and majestic PB. So that's absolute fact. All the other things are a contingency, and one of them is chosen by his absolute free choice. Okay, so that's just a side explanation to connect that to universal picture about the divine, Allah. That's the only one which is worthy of divine. All other things are not worthy, but they are imagined by some mushrikeen to be somehow worthy and so on. This is all imagination, refutable by necessary evidence and so on. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you believe in the divine. That's what will be accounted upon. And the only correct creed is the Islamic creed about that. But that is in the building the structure of evidences for the truth of Islam, not in the matter of accountability. So next ayah.
وهو الذي يبدأ الخلق ثم يعيده وهو أهون عليه وله المثل الأعلى في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم.
Yeah, so that's a very important ayah. It contains some fundamental principles. Let's read carefully the first translation and the second one.
And he it is who creates all life in the first instance, and then brings it forth anew. And most easy is this for him, since his is the essence of all that is most sublime in the heavens and on earth, and he alone is almighty, truly wise. Next translation. It is he who brings forth creation, then he reproduces it, and that is easy for him, for he is above all comparisons in the heavens and earth. He is the mighty, dear, the wise.
Yeah. So the issue addressed here, there always the issue of resurrection, the possibility of resurrection. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran gives a general rule. He is the one who initiates the creation. Obviously, the mind will go because the discussion is about resurrection and so on, the general framework of Surah Al-Rum and things like that. And the most Makki Quran is that resurrection is coming necessarily for humans and for other beings possibly who are responsible and addressed by him through certain types of revelation, maybe another galaxies. We don't bother about it, but their existence is possible. No need to fight and strive that the only being are these and the jinn and things like that. This is show the limitation of the mind of the people, and most likely they are following the Old Testament, which looks at the universe this deficient way of looking. But here, anyway, and there's not only the living things or the non-living things. We initiate all creation of the world, but the focus on living creatures. So he's the one who initiates the creation. By necessity of reason, we know that the one who initiates the creation out of nothing, of starting absolutely out of nothing, just what the various, let us say, just giving an example so we can comprehend it, according to contingency and possibilities present in the divine knowledge. That's called the present knowledge in eternity. But there's an acquired knowledge which will come later. But this present knowledge, it is present. How it is present? For us, it's present like an internal imagination. That's definitely not the case for us. We don't know how it is. And asking about it is impossible to answer, because you don't ask about the infinite. From there, you will go to the finite, study it, and approach the infinite in cautious step, like done now in modern mathematics, until you reach a limit, find the limit, or there's no limit, and then you can try to have some characteristic of the limit from the converging process, or just give up in a diverging process. That's all what you can. Anything else, if anyone tell you anything, then he's in a dreaming world. Stop him there, say, how do you know that the infinite is like that? Let me give one example. It came casually in a discussion. Someone writing about the Gnostics. These guys who somehow want to solve the problem of good and evil, the creation. So one of them argued the following: if Allah is kulli al-wujud, total in existence, how he can create anything? He must then shrink away and make an open space in which the creation is. It's all the nonsense. What do you mean? First, what do you mean with kulli al-wujud? Comprehensive, meaning filling all space? Does Allah is in space? All is space an attribute of the creation? So you have to go. How to know that? Starting from here, you have to start from here and work bit by bit and see if you can settle the question or not. That's all what you can. That's all what you can. From there, we don't know. You start with infinite, you end in infinite troubles. It can be anything else because there's no way under our control, mind control. What I want control is you look at finite things. You look at numbers like a pack of 50 oranges. I can then figure how I take one orange, then it is 49. And I define taking away, minus. That's how we learned in school. What is a bag of 50 and take away? And then we face a dilemma when we take the last one. What is the remaining? No oranges. Is that, can we call that a number? That's the reason humanity hesitated for all its life until very recently meaning 1,000 years ago roughly, you have a number called zero. And we wonder now, how come the people did not need to detect zero and need to go to India and the Arabs to do? The Romans did not have that. What's the problem with the people? The problem is we have a genuine problem because that's the way the number system developed. Zero is a problem. Negative is even worse. What are these things are? So humble yourself, recognize that you are finite. So you start with the finite, which you can look with the mind of the eye into these things and count and work bit by bit. And then we know 50, we can add 1, 51. Yeah, okay, more. Yeah, 52, 50. Aha, we can go then to infinity in a well-structured, systematic way. What's infinity? In that case, it's divergent. We cannot say very much yet. So that's the way to go. Just to give that an example. So, in the case of the divine, he initiated the creation for the whole universe based on the knowledge present in his knowledge in eternity. How it is present, we don't know. How we can imagine, it's impossible to know. And there's no way it will become accessible to us. No here, no in next life, no in all eternity. But we approach more and more, never reaching there, which is great because this way we can learn more and become more happier and more educated. We don't get bored in paradise. Well, alhamdulillah. But it's created by necessity. It's impossible for a fine being to get there without becoming divine. But created being will never become divine. Otherwise, you have contradiction. Everything becomes contradiction, and the whole mind collapses. So that's by necessity. So the one who initiated it for human conception, if you initiate a machine, then everyone will understand it's much easier to put it together. If you take it out, you can put it together again. You have initiated it. You have already the building plan. How you got it, that's another issue. You have already the building plan, and you know the machine completely as a working machine with all aspects there, at least for humans. Then it is very, very possible, very well possible that if it is disintegrated and scattered, that you can, or you can build another machine from a similar material according to the previous model, which was already done and executed really. So it should be easier. Should be easier to recreate in human scale. And Allah said that He is the one who initiated the creation and repeated again, and it should be easier for Him. And then the easier is according to human perception. There's no difference between the first one and the second. All of them follow the same level, easiness or uneasiness. But for human perception, the other one seems to be easier. But Allah has after that to say, give us the second rule. That's because of your way of thinking and perception, something easier than something. But that's where your mind and is structured. It cannot get out of these scaling things and so on. But it's okay to say about Allah like that. But keep in mind that He had the supreme example, the supreme reference frame, and He's really the only absolutely exalted, absolutely wise or perfectionist. So this gives you a rule. If something applies to the creation, any attribute or any statement, obviously to humans especially, because they are top of the creation matter of, if you rank them according to rationality, definitely a being which can think and can have a free will, which is surprising for many people. Until now, some people think this free will is just an illusion, but exclude if it's illusion or that we can discuss later. Such a being is superior to a being who has the more deficient will and less intellect, like a dog. We perceive that by necessity, this is superior, this is more capable. And so going down until the dead matter, no reason, nothing. Definitely is superior. I'm also seeing the structure in the universe by experimentation and observation. These higher beings are much more complex, and their brain we got much more complex in matter of the interconnection, not a matter of number of cells. Number can be big, but if they're not sufficiently interconnected, they will not have the complexity to have this emerging property, if we call it an emerging property. It's not settled anywhere that, but it's clearly this is a. So if anything can be stated about created being, which does not entail a deficiency, because something can be stated and you think it may apply to Allah, but it entails the deficiency, so it's impossible, it cannot be applying to Allah. But this one, creating and recreating, applies to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is easier than this according to human scale. For Allah, we know there's nothing easier, they're all in the same rank. But he give you the rule here. He has the supreme example. So you can conclude from that, but also dictated by necessity, by the way. If an attribute or a statement about a necessity existing being is about a contingent being, which does not entail any contingency or any deficiency, then this applies to Allah to the utmost extreme, not falling into contradiction. If it has any necessary connection with deficiency and limitation, then it's zero. It cannot apply to ourselves completely. That's a rule that can be used, and it's a rationally compelling and well-established rule. It can be developed more strictly than just my waving arguments now. But that's it. But the principle is in. Ibn Taymiyyah deduced from that a good principle, and but in the application he failed. But the principle is there. So whatever can be said about the creation, which does not entail, it is not straight at that point, does not entail any deficiency, then it should be applying to Allah by a greater reason. But in the application, he failed. He did not apply it properly. I'll give you an example. He was discussing the issue coming from the throne down, etc., etc. And he says, but we see by necessity of reason is that the being who can go and at free will go and come back and is superior or more perfect than a being which is frozen in his place. So Allah should be having this coverage. You can. He came, we went up to his throne, went down, and so on. Where the problem of Ibn Taymiyyah is that going back and forth for the creation, which we are coming from the creation to apply principle of supreme reason, of a supreme example. In the creation is that necessity connected that these beings are all them are limited in shape and fill a certain space and don't fill another space. That's the reason is the one who can move and go is more perfect. The living thing is more perfect than the dead things, but because they are fundamentally limited to a certain space. Can we say Allah is in space? If he can be in space, then he must be in all space. Otherwise, he has a deficiency. So the going must be metaphorical in the Quran. Ibn Taymiyyah is trying to run away from that because he does not want to undermine the Hanbali, narrow-minded, shallow point of view. That's it. So his application is wrong, but we are not going to the details for that. Leave that for more sophisticated discussion. So it's very important applying this principle to be very cautious and very alert that there may be some fallacy there which you did not notice. The fallacy is that what appears to be superior to other thing is connected by necessity to a fundamental deficiency and contingency. If it is not, now someone can argue, we developed the irrefutable evidence based on the principle of contradiction identity. That's absolute. We have to make that an absolute, otherwise we'll end in madness, in a magic universe in which nothing is true. Everything can be true and false at the same time. That's not possible. Leave this one. If we are in really rational reality, in any sense, but rational, meaning no contradictions possible for any being in that reality, the one we conceive and what we can't conceive, then we see nowhere that the having of free will and the having of mind is inferior to those who do not have. So we must say that the divine have some, in some sense, knowledge and have free will. His free will is absolute, unlimited, not conditioned by anything, absolutely free, absolute spontaneity. And his knowledge, at least in eternity, must be present in his mind in some way we don't know. But this is befitting for a necessary existing being. So the necessary existing being, which we developed through the first principle, must be a God, not a deaf, blind nature. That's another evidence, which is similar. Essentially, it is now the further development of the St. Anselm ontological proof. You don't need to argue about the Big Bang and going back and so on. You can do that also, but that one is more compelling on this general principle. So this ayah hints to that. Ibn Taymiyyah noticed some of it, but made mistake in the application, which is okay. Human shortcoming. And in his case, it's most likely because he could not pull himself away from being a Hanbali and trying to remain. That his time around would not allow that also. And he did not have the courage or the foolishness. He would be foolish to do that at that time if he just deviated for madhab in the issue of divorce. A petty issue relative to the issue of divine perfection, and got imprisoned because of that. So if he would dare in that area, if it ever came in his mind, he would crucify. Or in Muslim world, we don't have crucifixion and burning on the stake. But in Europe, they will crucify you right away. They will burn you on the stake with a very good argument that you have been possessed by the devil and they must free your soul from this satanic situation by burning you away. Anyway, and sometimes these things are connected with historic events. You can only either cry or laugh. I leave that for you. But it goes to that level in Europe and the Christianity in the Middle Ages. They free you from the devil by burning you away. Okay, so back to more serious stuff. So this is a fundamentally correct. The principle is in وَلَهُ الْمَثُلُ الْأَعْلَى. Every example you give, he has a more the supreme example. So anything which can be scaled and have no deficiency intrinsically in its definition must be applied to Allah in the utmost supreme way imaginable. You just stated like that without how it is. There is no way we can have a mental image and present a squeeze in our mind. There's no way. It's not a controllable infinity. It's an uncontrollable infinity for us. For him, it's present. How much control? We don't know. That's all for him to explain to us in the Quran or in the Revelation. The how much, and giving example of that. And here he gives an example of it. And then I conclude, وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. He is the mighty. Aziz is actually, some people translate to the mighty. It's actually the absolute resistant to any way to undermine his power. Is that mighty? Yeah, maybe. But it's more the resistance type. He is so unattackable. It's impossible to attack him for any way. Intrinsically. It does not mean necessarily that he actively is the absolutely powerful, although it's entailed in it. But this is the ma'na of Aziz. Exaltation, being exalted, being undefeatable, unapproachable, unattackable. Absolutely, in absolute term. And Hakim is either two meaning of Hukum, is either wise, that's a very common translation, but most likely also Hukum is the verificators, put things in the right place, which is the other definition of wise. So if he does something, we know it must be by hikmah, which putting things in the right place. How do we know it's the right place? We may not know. Maybe you never know, but he knows. So he cannot be questioned about that. All that is hinted in this one. And the divine names used there. So keep that in mind. But it needs fleshing out. Fleshing out by what? By invoking the Quran in various phrases. That's the first step. And secondly, going to the basic necessity of reason and being more scrutinized than shallow looking at things that they are at first sight. Look deeper and connect things with each other. The same with the Quran. Don't be taken over by one ayah where the other ayahs which explains from other side. This is the menace which most, unfortunately, schools of Kalam and schools of fiqh fall in start in the Islam. And maybe they're excused. The revelation came to people who are simple-minded, essentially Bedouins, or maybe some a little bit more advanced with but definitely in the level of civilization and sophistication and so on, far below the Romans and Persian. There's no doubt about that. And you don't expect them in the first phase, even as companion. And that's another mistake of the India generation, that they would have comprehended that and understood it in full. No. But they understood sufficient from it to be good Muslims and really sincere and devoted to try and fight for it. That's their distinction. That's it. They have no other distinction. So when Ibn Taymiyyah argues about the tafsir coming from Sahaba and saying tafsir from Sahaba and so on must be pointing back to revelation, because he claimed, now his claim is the following: it is no way that a messenger of Allah has been died and went away without explanation of all the ayahs. Giving tafsir, complete tafsir. But it's not true. It contradicts his historic reality. He barely commented except very few places, because clear Arabic, and secondly, it has to be put together in a more sophisticated way. But he put the foundation for that. Then the Quran itself said, we will show them our signs in the ifaq so that they will know the Quran is the truth. So there are truths hidden there. They were not even available and accessible in the time of Prophet ﷺ. Neither to him nor to the Sahaba. And this is not a deficiency. This is an issue of Quran being miraculous. So his assumption is fallacy. So he refers only to tafsir al-salaf, or what he claimed to be a salaf, obviously. Again, in definition of salaf, he has various fallacies also. But this is a matter of longer discussion. But showing the pitfalls of such sweeping statements which have no real evidence of history and necessary reason, just abstract. He could not have been taken away from dunya and the deen complete, except he have given explanation to every ayah or every rest of it. No, not necessary. Quran is self-explanatory, and when challenging the munafiqeen and the people who pretend to be Muslim, but in reality they are not, there's some category of the munafiqeen, addressing them, أَفَلَا تَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا. Then they ponder, he's addressing them directly. They say, go to my prophet and ask him. No, or to the Sahaba. You yourself, being a genuine Arab, you understand Arabic, addressing Arab speaker, the genuine one who understand the language of revelation at that time. Ponder about it and find if there's any contradiction, which requires checking all of it, not one ayah or half ayah, like the bad custom of scholars and for mutakallimin after that. Or even don't check it at all, making just a sweeping assumption without checking the whole of the Quran. So you have to blame yourself if you don't follow the correct methodology dictated by the Quran itself. Just the beginning reading of the Quran will give you these basic rules. Second reading will deepen it and make it more structured. That's the way to go. There's no other way to go. So just give you how things could go astray. Some of it is excused because the level of civilization at that time. That's human. Allah knows that, and He knows how to do the accounting complete. You don't need to bother about some people if they said that, meaning these people are shortcut, these people are donkeys. No, nothing of that. Leave that to Allah. It happened like that, and beware of it and avoid it. That's it. That's it. That's the discussion like that, please. Anything else is biased either toward one side or the other side, or indication of some kind of heart disease, or indication of simple-mindedness, which let the devil interfere with your way of thinking. Always such impossible question. Always, if you question yourself something like that, you should ask, is this really a genuine question or the satanic inspiration? Let me analyze it further. In many cases, you will find it's actually a question is empty. There's nothing there. It's just nonsensical. There are assumptions there hidden which are not true or not verified yet. So let's go to these. So beware of that. It's very difficult, but with the progress of both in Islamic civilization, but also other civilization after that, progress of knowledge, accumulation of science, especially progress in mathematics and so on, abstract thinking, we should have that all on board. unfortunately, any mutakallimin was elated by learning the logic and the basic categories and etc. That's the say formal logic, semi-formal. It's not formal, semi-formal logic from Aristotle, and they thought that's the ultima. There's nothing beyond that. It's impossible, and must be because it's evidently clear and enlightened in the mind immediately. They thought everything which Aristotle has produced, like for example, that the one can produce only one. Just absurd statement, doesn't make any sense. Which are based on which his theory of the emergence of various spirits and minds and so on, and various levels of deities is utter nonsensical. So it's a mythical theory which has been refuted by our physics and by the system of reason. Because the starting point is wrong. They took that as a given. No, it's not given. No, it's not true. It's not given. And the divine must be so rigid, nothing happened to him, otherwise he's not perfect. No, that is not. That's a mistake either. And this led to so many mistakes, to jabr, to issue in qadr, and so on, because they regard that as absolute. You should not start that. You should, in that situation, I was talking about the divine and things of eternity, we are going to the infinity, the starting point must be a certainty. If you have established prophecy with certainty, then check the Quran, see what implies in that. And they will see clearly that's not possible. The definition of the divine perfection this way leads to the divine who is absolutely rigid and knowing everything but doing nothing is absolutely contradictory. But you don't need to wait centuries, almost a millennium, until this is clear discourse. It's here, there, take it in front of you. If you start with the Quran.
Sheikh, just on this issue, so the divine perfection, because I remember a brother who, initially when you were mentioning about the open nature of qadr, he used perfection of Allah's knowledge, and he's
exactly that's it.
Because saying that because that means Allah's knowledge will change. He's trying to, you know,
even if it's changed, is not an effect.
Because he knows all possibilities, whatever manifests is still encapsulated in his all-knowing. Is a response to that.
Yeah, that's it. The future is بكل شيء عليم. They understood شيء that the future events are شيء. They are not شيء. Impossible to know. The same على كل شيء قدير. Can he annihilate himself? Maybe is not possible. The absolute nothingness is not a شيء. It linguistically appears as a شيء, and this is a major problem that people did not detect. But if they started the Quran, say, let's start with that. Assume it's divine revelation, and the divine is at least cannot be lying and not telling the truth must be that. Assuming it's the revelation, obviously, because establishing a revelation sometimes is much easier than going there, because we're talking about a finite time, a finite man, people around him, battles, and so on. That's we can touch it, we can know it, and see that he has prophecies which materialize after him or in his time with the mushrikeen, like at the beginning of Surah Al-Rum, watching like dogs for him to do any mistake. It could not have been written in the Quran after the event. It must be before. It's an absolute certainty of prophecy and has been fulfilled. And this is no way that can be within the human. In addition, the Quran says clear, وعد Allah. It's a divine promise. It's not following from the current situation. But if the current situation, if left alone, will go other way. We realize the Roman empires would collapse and disappear. But Allah promised that, and He will do it by force, any way He likes. That's so clear. But they didn't start with this. They started, the mutakallimin, with Aristotle and some imaginary assumption about the infinite and the perfection. It can't contradict the absolute necessity of it. Allah Himself is the absolute truth. He cannot study Himself contradictory. So that's all need a little. I understand getting to there it took a long process, but should not have been that long in the Islamic world. It should have been much earlier. Much earlier. Starting with hypothesis. This is from the necessarily existing eternal being who knows everything and so on. Just hand-waving arguments. Yeah, okay. Let's see what he says. In certain places, the necessity of language dictate these things. Is that a contradiction? But the prophethood has been established with good level of certitude, almost with absolute mathematical certitude. So there's an issue there. So maybe our understanding of the perfection in that is faulty. And then you start then you are in business. You start from there and work. I'm not saying you will settle a question, but you start from there and work. Note what I said. Anything changing, all the creation is changing. We see changes and so on. So any change in any being, it means it's created. No, that all creation is changing. You cannot, even logically, you cannot state the opposite. It's not part of the definition of the existing that is changing or not changing. Changing means disappearing and so on. Yeah, that will not contradict the existing. But that his knowledge can be beside the evidently must be there, present knowledge in eternity, in which all the possible universe, all these things exist. Yes, that's it. Present in some way, We don't know how it's present. We know how these things are present in our mind. They're extracted from the reality around us, and then we have it. It's like a faint mental image, and we just work with that and go from there. That's the only way we can approach. For him, we don't know. We should know. But the moment eternity is finished and the creation started in a singular, miraculous way, which we cannot describe anymore, but the Massari said, then they will be acquired knowledge. But the Quran says clearly, there's no seed in heaven and earth or inside the rock, because inside the rock seems for human far away from any access. Allah knows, but He adds one, and even if a leaf falls, He knows that it falls. So He knows that, and the necessity then, He knows that the leaf is there. And then He knows after that that it has fallen, and so this is change of relation in such a way that they call change. And it's not possible. No, Quran is clear, and linguistically there's no other way to express it. So the acquired knowledge does change. Now about the future, بكل شيء عليم. Yes, بكل شيء. Which is a shay? Is the future a shay? That's the fundamental question. And so on. I'm just mentioning that now casually. We discussed the book of Tawheed. I try to avoid to go deep in the book of Tawheed, maybe and elsewhere in Tariq al-Iman or proofs of Islam. We'll have that into the boring level of expansion. But anyway, the approach was false. That's my problem. They started the approach false. The fundamental says that if the divine is so and so on, how do you know this is necessarily connected and the concept of necessarily existing? Which we reach only by seeing the reality, and everything is contingent to what we see, etc. That's fine. And then by necessity of reason, it cannot be all the reality is only contingency. Otherwise, we'll deny reason and destroy it. So there must be at least one entity which is necessarily existing, which will be the origin of these things. How this originated, we don't know the details. We don't know where it is. It must be, these contingent must be leaning and referring back to this absolute. Okay, fine. Now, what this existence entails? It is impossible to be attributed of two or more beings. And then we have established by watching the reality of contingency that one must exist, and two and more cannot exist. Is impossible. So it must be exactly one. Now this one is the issue of creation. How is that? Is it something flowing from him who doesn't know and so on? Is a deaf, blind nature? That proves by further analysis as being a possibility. So it must be the other one. There's no other option. And the act is called creation. Not proceeding, not emanation, not giving birth, none of this nonsense. That's all nonsense. It's impossible. That's the way to go. How would this singularity jump from things jump suddenly in existence by His will and order? We stop there. It's a singularity. And then, luckily, not luckily, by necessity also reason, we have a mathematical model for that in the logarithmic function. But this is another issue. So everything fits together this way. But starting with the right thing and questioning the right beginning. How do you know that the infinite must be like that? Let me start with the finite, I know, and show me that step by step, by evidence, not just arbitrary assumption. That's it. It's the way to go. And that's the way of the Quran. Take a look to that. So it proves also that Quran is from Allah, interacting together. But it proves also the Old Testament is as it stands, not from Allah. It may contain something from Allah somewhere. We can try to fish it out with difficulties, but we don't need that, alhamdulillah. We have one which is clean. These are contaminated. That they are contaminated, we can prove by necessity also, without even referring to science and technology. Let me start just an example, then we go to the next ayah that will stay years in this issue. Start with Genesis, the Facebook. They claim it's written by Moses. We are not Israel, written by Moses. It's getting written and then copied by divine protection until, okay, we were. But look at the text. There's a creation story of a day and so on. Oh, this metaphorical, maybe the day, maybe a billion years. No problem. We do. That's all. There's no contradiction. But there are a problem with the two creation stories. Whatever metaphor we use for them, they cannot be the same, real at the same, true at the same time. It's impossible by rational necessity. And one of them is the creation of, not the creation of the trees are happening after creation of the animals. Obviously, this is contradicting nature. Even I don't will appeal to that. But the order of creation in one of them is different than the order of creation of the other one. That's contradiction. No amount of metaphorical or even referring, no, don't refer to nature. We don't trust these evolutionary biologists and so on. I don't care about that. But this is by necessity of reason impossible to be both true. One of them true, one is false, or both are false. This could not be as it stands from Allah. I would have written at the divine protection. Check out that book is not from Allah as it stands. Does it contain things from Allah and from the first? Yeah, very well. No, I have no problem with that. But that's it's gone. Infallibility is gone. It cannot be an authority, absolute authority, very fair too. So this checked. Now we go to the claim that first book written by Moses. Clearly, it's impossible because the last one, the most important one concerning hukum and theology and so on, that's in Deuteronomy, is concluding with the following statement. And after Moses died, he described the death, or this is an oddity that Haman describes on it, let's say by revelation. Okay. A generation went and no man or no prophet to the level of Musa has come yet. So it's written long ago. And there's a sentence there which indicates that written somehow the writer is writing in exile. Is it a Ashurian exile or whatever it is, it's an exile. Definitely is not Musa. So that statement there cannot fit the reality. It's not an absolute contradiction, but does not fit the reality of claims written by Moses. So written by someone else or many other people. So we cannot appeal to prophethood, infallibility, and so on. And then you go from there. But they have an internal contradiction. For example, I'll give you another one. So just for this, we have to have a tool. There are so-called 10 Commandments. And all the Torah, that's what they call Torah. It's not the revealed Torah, but let me mention that later. Maybe it's good. It's good to stick to this point a little bit because nowadays people say Islamic dilemma. Islam is a dilemma. It's not a problem in a quagmire. No, it's not there. The dilemma is in their own minds, and also some minds of Muslims who believe that these books are somehow revelation or just a little bit changed. No, they are massively changed, but that's not the issue now. We have to prove that they change, and the change is there, definitely. So they mention only 2 tablets, always. Quran talk about alwah tablets. Okay. That's quite important that the mention of 2 is maybe fallacy because Arabic has a form for dual and it's unconceivable that only 2, but it's remote. It could be alwah, could be 2 and more. That's a possibility. But for language which have dual like Arabic, it's strange that nowhere is only 2. The 2 tablets, 2 tablets, 2 tablets. But some colleague, 2 tablets also alwah, multiple tablets. And 2 is multiple, not 1. No doubt about that. And the Quran missed that one because talking about 2 tablets will not fit in the nice eloquent language of the Quran. Okay, accepted that. The content is described in Deuteronomy. Number 1, you don't do the so-called 10 Commandments. Okay, that's the 10 Commandments given in Mount Musa, Sinai. There's another version, slightly changed. Okay, we can say the scribes made a small mistakes and so on, which is put a question mark. I think there's other versions in Numbers. I don't know. Okay. But the catastrophe is looming elsewhere. In Exodus, there's a version also given Mount Sinai. And it's absolutely different. There's no way this 10 commandments read that 10 commandments. So question, which one is the 10 commandments written down and given in Mount Sinai? It can be either this or this. It cannot be both. Again, this is by necessity of reason, meaning there's a contradiction which can be removed, cannot be removed by any metaphorical explanation, by saying this is exaggeration, this is symbolism. You cannot remove it. This one is not this one. It contains other commandments, different than this commandment, and missing commandments in this one. I mean, this one, the one in Torah, the one in Numbers is essentially that one, maybe wording difference. Okay, let us be lenient and gentle. It is the same, but that one in Exodus, go and check it by yourself. So the 5 books together, regarded as books, as Torah, are internally contradictory in their sub-books. Game over. So that's not the revealed Torah. The revealed Torah is something else. It is what in the tablets, plus what Musa has dictated to his scribes and so on. Because the Quran says, and mention things which are not in the Old Testament clearly stated like that. And this is the old Torah, but allegedly called Torah by the Jews. Let me give you an example. The Quran says, إن هذا في الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. This, what is in the ancient scrolls, the scrolls of Ibrahim and Musa, is the fact that you humans prefer this dunya and neglect the akhirah. Nowhere in these 5 books from Genesis, which may contain bits from Abraham and so on, nowhere in these anything is mentioning which reflects that. Actually, the resurrection and the next life is carefully edited out. If we assume the Quran is from Allah, then we have to say why it is edited out and how come it crept in this original Torah. That's number one. And also, it mentions and the issue that nobody can be responsible for doing of anybody else, no punish for the other one else, which contradicts what in the Old Testament, that I take my punishment until the 7th generation, things like that. That's a fallacy. Attribute to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I say, أولم ينبأ بما في صحف موسى وإبراهيم. Didn't he receive the news that what was firmly established in the scrolls of Musa and Ibrahim, who completed the message? ألا تزر وزرة وأخرى أخرى وأن ليس الإنسان إلا ما سعى ونسعى سوى. There's nobody will carry the burden of another person at all. ألا تزر وزرة. That's an absolute statement. The Quran mentioned in various places with this. ألا تزر وزرة وزر أخرى وأن ليس الإنسان إلا ما سعى. Humans will be allocated only what he produced by his own doing and work, nothing else. And other statements, وأن عليه النشأة الأخرى, that Allah is guaranteeing by His promise, absolute unattackable promise, that He will recreate the creation again. Where is that in these 5 books? Nowhere with this clarity. Just the opposite. It opens the door for the claim that there was a sin which the whole world was destroyed because of that, and death entered in the world. And then based on that, He sent His Son to save. All this nonsense is based on this failure in this one point, which is in the Quran to the ad nauseum. So if the Quran from Allah is not, but we believe it's in Allah and we have the evidence for that. So we have, as scholars of Islam, we should go and say, that's not there. So these are the composition of 5 books. Some of them may be historical books like Exodus. That's someone writing the diary of the Exodus. That's fine. I have no problem with that, with the human limitation. Because there's another narration actually mentioned by part of it is mentioned of his name, Josephus, in his history. He said he relying on the Holy Scripture and also other historic books, which are not available of the extent. And it's different than this one. So already, Josephus did not bother about that and regard it as a history. He has no concept of infallibility of Scripture and so on. That's a different concept. But independent of that, we have another narrative. Okay, that's history. Someone wrote that, another edited this, and also some names of places are changed to fit the names of the time of writing, because the ancient names may be quite different. Like in one place, it talks about a city of Ramses. That's in the time of the one who writing. The time of Exodus definitely is before Ramses, for many other evidences. But that's okay. It happens in history. You say the city is called City of Ramses. In time was blah blah blah, something like that. And we just neglected the old name and put the current. So you can imagine what is happening according to what's available in your time as a reader. That's okay. But that's not divine, not protected. And then merging that and attributing to Musa is even an insult to injury. So there's no Islamic dilemma. Our Quran is clear in that. When you talk about the Torah and the revelation of Torah, talk the revealed one, the tablets and the scrolls of Musa. Only in one place says what they have in their hand. That's about Torah and gospel at their hand. That's the promise of the Muhammad al-Sallam. الذين يجدون مكتوبا عندهم في التوراة والإنجيل, meaning the Torah as what they call Torah, what they call Injil. And that's true. And Deuteronomy is the mentioning and announcement of the final prophet with his characteristic, and the Injil is the announcement of the Paracletus, which can be interpreted only as Muhammad. They interpret as the Holy Spirit, but this interpretation is attacked by many scholars from their side. Anyway, they're attacking it. Anyway, but Muslims should be attacked easily, because he states clearly in John, if it is authentic, they claim it's authentic. Okay, take it as authentic. It says clearly, I have to go now. I cannot establish the kingdom. And there are many things about me you don't know. But the Paracletus who will come after will explain everything. And most likely missing from the statement, and he will be the one who established the kingdom. To establish the kingdom is the announcement of Prophet Muhammad also, besides his name as the Paracletus, the most announced and respected all over the islands. Although the version available is slightly in one letter mutilated, giving the meaning of supporter or comforter. But with just one letter said, one vowel, by the way, is a name used in the pagan literature was someone whose fame surrounded everywhere. Ahmad, the most praiseworthy. But also the kingdom, also the kingdom, which is obscure in the Old Testament. They have in the New Testament they have various. What is the kingdom? Some people say it's the kingdom after Akhirah. Yom al-Qiyamah. Some this no. It's announcing of the rule of law and the rule of Sharia, final one by the final messenger. So the Paracletus is the one who established the kingdom. So Isa was announcing the kingdom is coming. His disciples, understandably, understood that he will be the one coming. So when he met them after the so-called resurrections, not resurrections, the appearance, they told him, Rabbi, teacher, when you are going to establish the kingdom? He did not answer and refer the issue of the Paracletus in another place. So if you put that all together, you see what's the meaning of reference to Torah. And you may assume it's basically that's what has been revealed, not what in their hand, except you are compelled by the text to look at their hand. And this is only place coming in my mind at the moment. Maybe someone can detect elsewhere is in Surah Al-A'raf about النبي العربي الأمي الذي يجدونه مكتوبا عندهم في التوراة والإنجيل as it in their hands. So check what you have in your hands and what you call Torah and Injil. So the reference to Torah and Injil in Quran is usually to the revealed one, which is gone and messed up. But what you ever had, it has some of it, bits and pieces here. Definitely it has some of it. No doubt it has some revelation things. You can find things which are consistent in all the books and all the prophets. That must be from divine revelation, which is unity of oneness, all of that. Nothing. And like that, God is not a man. God cannot be seen, etc. Although in the Old Testament they claim that they asked Musa, let us see Allah, and he appeared to them, and his appearance caused them to die, collapse. The only fallacy there is that he appeared to them. He did not appear to them. Just by the request, they were struck with the lightning for their shameless behavior. Essentially, because the question is that not that they want to see how he is, they say that he exists. All of these miracles are taken from Egypt is not enough for you donkeys to understand. So they were struck, and then Musa supplicated until Allah revived them for him. There's a hint that reviving is possible. Only that's escape because they have to fix their position. And they say, we don't want us to see God, otherwise we'll die. No, we don't want to see him. We got our lesson. Anyone thinking these books are having anything really deeply valuable in totality is his brain is dead. He's in a hopeless situation. But the majority of them do not even read them. Even someone like Kataka Carlson, when he respond to this donkey senator, which talks about that Allah promised who blessed Israel. And he answered him, where is it? And he doesn't know. Say it is in Genesis number kada and so on. Even he is wrong there. He did not go bother reading it. It is not about Israel there. The word of Israel is not used. So where it is used, what's used there? Abraham. Who blessed Abraham, I bless him. But from Abraham, many nations have been descended by their own admission according to their genealogy. False or true, doesn't matter, but that's what they narrate. So the blessing to Abraham, all of his seeds. Why are you restricting it to Israel? Oh, there's another place where it says, who bless Israel, I bless you, and so on. That's uttered by Bal'am bin Ba'ura, the false prophet, in response to the pressure of the community to him that you should curse Musa and prevent him from passing in our land. He said, I cannot. The Messiah who bless Israel. Now what is in front of you must be blessed now. It doesn't relate to Abraham and so on. And this man apostatized after that and tried to curse Musa and he got cursed. So which kind of evidence is that? That's the only thing there, ever. But they don't read their own books. They're in complete darkness. And they have scholars who are sufficiently skilled in either cheating or declaring everything which does not fit desire. That's metaphorical. This is this. Anyway, we indulge too much in this thing, but I think this is good. From time to time, the occasion comes because the principle mentioned by Allah in the Quran, he has the supreme example. So what any good example you find in the creation, attributing something good to a creation or something which looks like at least limited perfection, then he deserves that to atmosphere. But it has to be real perfection, even limited, and not entailing imperfection, like going back and forth and so on, which cannot envisage in this reality except for some being which is limited in space. But this is impossible to attribute to the divine. So if we can say, can Allah be in space? Only if he in all space or nothing. If you say in all space, the Wahhabis say, I mean, he's the bathrooms, the testing the poor Pakistan's the door of the masjid. They stop someone. Where is Allah? Who gave you authority to stop the people at the door of masjid and ask them about that? Just to poke the people and put them in the corner and confuse them, actually misguiding them from Islam this way. They say everywhere. I mean, he's available in the bathroom. Okay, if you don't like him being in the bathroom, is everywhere, then the only alternative is nowhere. It's not in space. The space, the conceptual space does not apply to him. He's not a body in that sense, that it's in space and extended or not extended. No way. For example, instead of correct her. And also, even asking the people about that does not make any sense. That's contravening the Sharia issues and so on. And they mentioned the story of this woman who was asking, Ayn Allah, where is God? Where Allah? She said in heaven. That's the way narration usually mentioned. And she said, who I am, said you are a messenger of Allah. The reality, the real story is that this was a mute girl, a mute bondswoman, slave for some Ansari, and he committed something or did something or make an oath to free a believing woman, a believing soul. So I asked her, messenger of Allah, but she is mute and she can't explain. We don't know if she's a Muslim or believer or not believer. I said, no problem, bring her. And then the full narration says, he asked her, where is God? Where's God? Where is the divine? I mentioned the one control. Where is he? But where is your deity, the one you worship and so on? Where is he? Because if you say dead on earth, that's a pagan. For the pagans at that time, the one in heaven is only the big one, the boss. Any other ones? No, only the one up there. It's not meaning it's in this place or not, meaning the supreme one. And then he pointed to himself and said, She pointed to him and to heaven and down. You are the messenger of this one. By pointing, by symbolic language. Say, free her, she is a believer. He did not stand in the masjid interrogating the woman and the people. No, he was forced by necessity. The man wanted to check if she's a believer and he cannot communicate with her in a sensible sense. Say, listen, what should you do? Well, bring her. That's it. You don't go to the doors of the masjid and terrorize the people and ask them, or anywhere. You don't even ask that question. You admit that you are not capable of understanding that question properly and analyzing it properly, and just shut up. No, the Salaf said he's in heaven. Okay. And then we will tell him, okay, what's Surah Al-An'am? It says, وَهُوَ اللَّهُ فِي السَّمَاءِ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ وَهُوَ اللَّهُ فِي السَّمَاءِ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ. He Allah in heaven, meaning he is the deity only and is accepted. Why do you take it? It's clearly that he is in Sama and Ard. So how come suddenly be that's his mention or his respect in Sama and Ard? These people are jokers. When the poor Uthaymeen said, was asked about وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He's with you when you everywhere you be. The usual answer of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ahmad bin Hanbal, if he were asked about this question, because it's beyond his scope, is that he is with them with his knowledge. He said, no, we should, the general rule is that we should not specify things which are not specified with the text. He's with them with all possible meanings, which we don't know about. That's the usual way. He has a hand in a way we don't know what is it. That's what the same principle. No, not only with his knowledge, maybe with his mercy, maybe with his being, we don't know. In a way, it's inconceivable for us. Very reasonable question, according to the general rule, which has merits. So what happened to the poor guy? I mean, he was brought to a session in front of Ibn Baz and had to declare tawbah and sign on it that Atub ila Allah, I repent to God. I will never say that. I will say he is with us only with his knowledge. These people are jokers. Nothing consistent, nothing worthy of respect. And they claim this Quran Sunnah. We have nothing consistent with Quran Sunnah. Anyway, I think we have diverted too much, but it is a bit of it is entertainment, a bit of it is very deep thought. So we did a good mix. Allah, continue next eye. And don't ask anything. Divert us further. We got enough. We got some deep issues and some a bit of jokes also.
Mm-hmm. Just a quick one. The senator you referred to, was that Lindsey Graham in relation to Tucker Carlson?
No, the one was the one from Texas.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham, I think the one who
Lindsey Graham was never Tucker Carlson. No.
Rubio, not Rubio. You're talking about
the other one was Harvard graduate, should be the cream of the thinker.
Yeah, I know you're not talking about. This is the one that came on and he was. Yeah. But anyway, side note. Great.
It's on record. It's a video. Say we
remember that. You remember that.
We learned in Sunday school. That's all it has.
Yeah.
Ever open the book and see it?
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz, exactly. I think from Texas. And there's Harvard graduate. So Harvard graduate should be the cream of the nation, generally. And he should be in his field first class. But he's not using his brain where it should be used in the first place to find his place in the universe and the reality. It's very unfortunate, but that's the way. We are also partly guilty in that. We are not carrying da'wah the correct way. The correct and clean way. Assertive, but not appeasing. Stating the facts as it should be. No. Carry on.
ضرب لكم مثلا من أنفسكم هل لكم مما ملكت أيمانكم من شركاء في ما رزقناكم فأنتم فيه سواء تخافونهم كخيفتكم أنفسكم كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يعقلون.
So that's one example which if you ponder, you recognize that most of their shirk must be a fallacy. Okay. So what's the example? Let's get the translation.
He propounds you unto a parable drawn from your own life. Would you agree to have some of those whom your right hand possesses as full-fledged partners in whatever he may be bestowed upon you as sustenance, so that you and they would have equal shares in it, and you would fear to make use of it without consulting them, that bit's in bracket, just as you might fear the more powerful of your equals, Thus clearly do we spell out these messages unto people who use their reason. Next
So-
translation.
Mhm.
God gives you an example based on your lives. Do you make them, those whom your right hands held in trust, your full partners with the wealth we have provided you, so that all of you own it equally? And do you fear to use it without consulting them, just as you might fear your equals? No, this is how we explain the verses for the people who can understand.
Who understand. So what's the example here? Allah says, in your life, you will never accept that the people, your slaves, let's use the word slave. Some people are just having hesitation. That's the correct name. They're slaves or bondsmen, because slavery in Islam is really a bonds. It's not like chattel slavery in Texas. But this is responding to a recent problem by the abuse of the pagans and the Christian later of the concept of being a bondsman. But in the way of that, you own them. Do you accept or envisage or regard it as permissible or reasonable in any instance that these which you are owning and you can sell and buy will be full partner in that what you have, so that you cannot dispose of anything of that without their consultation? That's it. If you ponder about this, it is not acceptable. And that's for you, although that what you have own is actually given from Allah. So it's not your fundamental original owner like Allah. But leave that aside, this extreme point. In created being, that's the situation. So whatever you have really is actually from Allah. He's the original creator and owner with absolute sense. Everything else is depending upon him and get it from him directly or through long channels. No, but this also gives a hint to the Wahhabi, especially in the modern time, with their fallacy and arguments, is that they claim that the mushrikeen, as they were associating, they don't have shirk in rububiyyah, but they have shirk in uluhiyyah in a confused, obscure meaning. Like when they give an example, they say, لبيك لا شريك لك, we respond to your call without, you have no partner, except a partner, but you own him and own what he owns. تملكه ما ملك. We accept that as a partner. But the mushrikeen believing that this own partner, like for example, a son, because the son in the concept of the mushrikeen before Islam, and the girl even more, but the son is actually owned by his father. He can sacrifice him if he wants. We know the story of the Muttalib. He can sell him if he wants. So son also is of this category, even a divine son. So you will not accept that these, what you own, either because of genealogy, like sons and so on, or you bought them in the market and transfer their ownership. You will never come in your mind that you will accept that they will be partner equal to you, and at least that you have to consult them before disposing of the affairs of the man. That's that you have to accept. In the case of mushrikeen, you have to accept their shufa'an and Allah, that they can intercede, and God is obliged to accept the intercession or negotiate with them about the intercession. Meaning, or he can start interceding without permission, and then negotiation happens after that. If necessary, accept, not accept. Why not? Because permission was not given ahead and must be given ahead. So do you accept that as a partner? You claim God has partner like that, but we're not having other master. He's only master, but these are his slaves, but still have these facilities. That's impossible. So how can you apply that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's what they attributed to the gods, to sons of gods, and so on. They never said they have complete power of the universe. They never, but they say they can intercede and Allah negotiate, or they fear from Allah, or they can run away from Allah, so we have to appease them to protect ourselves from their evil, like the jinn. In some aspect of ownership and control, they are participating. And you claim Allah is fine with that. No, cannot be fine with that. If you are not fine with that, then by greater reason, the Supreme, and you actually, your ownership itself is not intrinsically from you. How come that the one who owns everything, absolute initiation and intrinsicality should accept that? No, it can't be. You have to think and ponder. But it gives also the other side, like Wahhabi and so on, talk about uluhiyyah and rububiyyah. Look what is said there. So even the call إلا شريكا هو لك تملكه هو ما ملك, like when they say, we give that as an argument that I believe it's owned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, but it's not the ownership you think. The ownership was the owned one, although supposed to be lower, supposed to be slave, still he can have certain participation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, forcing him to at least to negotiate and have a back and forth. He can intercede without having permission before. He has genuine power in certain area, even a limited, or evil ones who can run away from him, he cannot catch them. Yeah. How come is that possible? So you see the example? Using the principle of supreme example in the opposite sense. This example is obviously absurd, so it's going to be attributed to the divine. It's not possible to have it. It will create contradiction. And mentioning him as a slave and believing they are owned in some sense or another, or they are lower in something or another, is not enough. They are really divine beside you declare them to be gods beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot have that as an excuse. No, we don't make them the supreme one. He's the supreme one. But his supremacy has been undermined by being under force to negotiate with them, or they can start the intercession without his previous permission. Khalas. Or run away from him and hide from him. Based on that, certain action can be done. For example, for the jinn, sacrifice to them, slaughter for them, just to keep them at bay. This is ibadah. This is an act of worship or act of enslavement. Should not be done. Because that type of creed is a shirk by itself, and the action related with that. And this entity, I'll give you a negative example of the jinn, because there's what Ibn Taymiyyah made a blunder, generalize that for any ibadah. It's valid for Allah's ibadah, but not for any ibadah, for any other ibadah. It said extreme love and extreme submission. How does that have to do with love? These entities can run away from Allah, and you feel, and you are forced by your belief that they can run away from Allah, that to protect yourself from evil, you have to do something to appease them. No, not submitting other things, just in this matter. And the way to appease them, according to what the priests tell you, priest of the satanic entity, just bring a sacrifice, give me a cow. And obviously he was going to eat it himself, but interpreted all these ornamentation. If you do it, that's an act of worship, act of devotion, act of the attribute to something which has some divine attribute. And this is kufr and shirk and ibadah. And there's no love there. You may hate these satanic entities, but what you can do, you have to do with it. So you see this example of settle all these issues also, and applied in reverse to the what they claim the mushrikeen. All these other deities are owned by Allah. He's the boss. He's the big one. It doesn't matter. You're still mushrik, and you still have other divine being beside Allah, even in a limited sense. That's what you said about Tawheed ad nauseum. In the next edition, inshallah, we'll edit it new. We'll bring it, and we'll bring these fundamental aspects in advance. So then make the proof. I made the development there, that's starting from basic things and developing until we get to these conclusions and these generalization. Actually, it seems to be for people understanding. You give them a conclusion and then prove it step by step. In that case, you have to be very watchful that during the proof, you don't need don't use that what to be proven to put it back, going in circularity. And it's quite difficult, but I know how to do it, inshallah. But the reason I chose the first approach, which makes things difficult and waiting until you get the final conclusion later, is to avoid any possibility of circularity or inducing circularity. But it turns out educationally, the other approach is much more effective. People will argue about the approaches. So in the next edition, we'll have these things will be established in advance as axiomatic, and then, but they are not axiomatic in the sense they can be proven based on basic necessity of reason and basic necessity of the reality of the world and the reality of the text. So that's just announcing that's what will happen. But there we are now doing a final edit of the Book of Tawheed, and it will contain mostly rearrangement. The facts there, they're well established. And there's some places which things were not expressed linguistically in a clear and sharp way, now they will be much sharper. This will be a good step forward. But what we have already is sufficiently good, inshallah. More than sufficient. But for educational purpose, I think the other approach seems to be from experience. We have the 81 halaqah, as you mentioned in the introduction, for Kitab Tawheed, which we have terminated now. Actually, that's what there is not a complete one. There's some chapters to come which are not completed. And they will come in the second main version, because this we call it as usual in programming, they have version 2 and then 2.1, 2.2, and so on, subversions. We have various subversions of that time past, but none of them is a complete one. Now, the next one will be like, well, this will be 1. All of the subversions will be after the dot. This will be 2.0. And hopefully will not be 2.1, except maybe for linguistic polishing and things like that. But that's it, inshallah. Okay? So just announcing that in advance. Under the condition that we Allah grant enough life to complete that, and we are advancing it quite good and speedily, but very more with added meticulously and comprehensive analysis of hadith and so on, but banning the details of analysis into appended sections which go into these painful work. These appended sections, most likely, I will not translate. I'm still thinking about not literally, but the main body will be more streamlined, and we will put that in translation. The way of translation we're doing the latest things, that Arabic, English. So everything is at everyone's hand, and retranslating and improving will be still available without major problems. Okay, that's just inshallah. Just hopefully Allah will give us health and life to complete that. But we take several months still up. We have several months now, 6 months for that, and we're still up. We're still in the first part, which are containing the meat. The rest part is real descriptive and easy to edit and rearrange quickly and so on. Go on, inshallah. Okay, Allah, I love you.
Next ayah, so this is ayah 29. بل اتبع الذين ظلموا أهواءهم بغير علم فمن يهدي من أضل الله وما لهم من ناصرين. But nay, they who are bent on evil doing follow but their own desires without having any knowledge of the truth. And who could guide those whom God has thus let go astray, and who thereupon have none to succor them? Next translation. But those who persist in being evildoers follow their own whims and desires without knowledge. Who can guide those whom God allows to stray? They will have no helpers.
Exactly. So that's tell us authorities we cannot perceive directly, because many of these, when they discuss their fallacies and try to prove it, they pretend to have rational argument. But this is all nothing really. It is following their desires. They have a desire, power, following tradition, not rocking the boat. They want to be like the elites in the West. They want to keep their power structure in time past, in which they have prospered and became millionaires and billionaires, and in time past lords and marquises and dukes, etc. And going back to the fundamental creed, upon which these things are based, by falsifying it and so on, is a tall order. You have to overcome the greed of power. You have to overcome the feeling of superiority to the others. You have to overcome your arrogance. You have to overcome diseases, not rational issues. Rational issues are clear, not a problem. But it's not a problem. It's not. And they pretend to bring rational arguments. It's well established that the previous one did the job. They explained everything. No. That's not the real motivation of these guys. Don't be fooled by that. But does not mean that we don't bring the rational arguments. But you should remind them, you have to overcome your internal disease. The first one, you have to overcome your arrogance and thinking that what you thought, what you think, and what you have concluded, and what the parents and grandparents of previous saying is superior somehow to something else. No, not necessarily. Especially as a nation, for example, especially if you have in a historic junction conquered a quarter of the world like the British, does not mean that you are superior to other intellectual capability. No. That has certain objective condition doing that. Maybe the humble Indian in his very is having a grasp of the deep reality much better than you. Humble yourself. Then things will change. Then rationality will take its correct place. But with arrogance, no. How come that this forsaken Indian in a village far away could be more true and recognizing the reality of the universe, the reality of existence more than myself? No way. Meaning I will give everything up. I will admit that I am an invader. I will admit that I'm a usurper. Who would do that? Except if you overcome your arrogance and your desire for possession and control. So overcome that. Otherwise, you'll never find the way, and Allah will let you go astray. I'll never give you any guidance until you humble yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and put yourself in its place. And this place is not a center of the reality. The center of reality, center of universe, center of thinking, center of morality is only one entity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How to get there? Yes, now reason will work. And it will work well. You put yourself outside. And concerning other creation, the best approach and the most is to classify yourself, I am the worst of creation. Let's go from there. If I have anything making me superior, let me check with the center of existence. What is the ranking of superiority? And he will tell you the ranking of superiority is righteousness and good consciousness. For the others, you don't know. You cannot see it. So you have to abstain from making a judgment and become self-righteous. For yourself, do as much as you can in this direction and be always self-critical and blaming yourself for sure. That's it. Then you're safe. Then you're safe. Otherwise, you're going to the abyss. That's the way to go. Best approach, I am the worst of creation. Everyone else is better than me in some aspects. Only Allah can rank them. He may have a flat nose, he may have big lips, there's an ego. All this is nonsense. Don't get trapped by the devil. The devil is your enemy. He wants you to drag to this minefield until you cannot survive. You see the minefield, recognize the minefield, say to the devil, no, thank you very much. You go alone. I'm not going there. I acknowledge that I am unable to detect the roads. Maybe everyone else can detect. I'm not detecting. I'm not going to do the experiment. I'm going to look from far away and take my precaution. I'm the weakest of the soldier. I'm least capable. Then you are safe. Then you will escape. Otherwise, you never escape. You will go deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you refer to this and refer to where superior we are, especially in front, la grande nation. Now, the English don't say la grande nation because they are cunning enough to cover it up. But in their hearts, generally, they're worse than the French. Look down to all other care. But they learned during the imperial time that the best way is to quote it nicely and cover it up by false narrative and news. Look, for example, for Churchill. I don't want to be political, but it's very important. Churchill is regarding in front of Hitler as the man of democracy and so on, and not committing atrocities. Really? Maybe Hitler is better than him. Look what he did in Kenya, in these camps. 200,000 human beings. Whatever the reasons, they may be rebellious and so on, right or wrong. He dispatched of them, but which way? Much more cruel and worse than Hitler. By inventing special kind of pliers, which used to castrate them and cut them in a certain way, which is both a castration and the bleeding and dying this way. Can you just kill them in a merciful way? Shoot them in the head. And then horror stories about it, what had happened in the concentration camps of Hitler. And invented stories that using gases and so on. And we know now from research and archaeology and so on, that was for removing lices and for decontamination and so on. The so-called gas chambers tend to be decontamination chambers because of lices and other diseases, not cutting their testicles like that. And the death was mostly because of diseases and malnutrition, especially toward the end of the war, where everyone was in that malnutrition. So if we are objective, this man is more evil than Hitler. But great, defender of freedom and so on. These people are just tune narratives after them. They're sufficiently cunning to do that. The French are stupid. They don't do that. They do it openly. They have enough scouts of Algerian piled there like a pyramid, competing with Genghis Khan. You will not find the British like that. They are much more intelligent than that. That's all, much more cunning. It's not an intelligence, cunningness, evil intelligence that the same disease, but expressed differently. La Grande Nation, I would say. How come they, these Algerian are rebelling against Laga? We bring them civilization. Come on, people. If you can fool yourself, you'll not be fooling all people all the time forever. Anyway, leave commercial, but it's because of desire. It's not rational consideration. But nobody will live in peace until he caught his desires in a rational cover.
Yeah, today's the equivalent is whenever they say Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's it. Just fool yourself.
The smoke screen.
Give it a nice coating so you can feel comfortable with yourself. Otherwise, your internal fitra will rebel against you. So that's it. So there's following their desires, covering up for this by a semi-rational argument. It's not that the irrational arguments are difficult. No. They're following your desires. So don't think you'll be able to guide the people who have forsaken, let go of say by Allah. They have to pull themselves out of the sound. Does not mean they stop calling them, stop reminding them, but reminding them the correct way. What you're saying is covering up for these diseases. Wake up that you should be like the doctor. If you are really carrying the da'wah, should be merciful. They have to be saved, but not saved by the wrong way, but the correct way. Your disease is this and this, you need this cure. Initially, it's okay. You will not get out of that until, or if you face the end of life, then you'll be in deathbed and you may have seen the truth, then it's too late. That's the only way da'wah should be carried. Appeal first to the emotions in the correct way. Your emotions are not the right emotion. They are coming from a sick mentality. Seeing the history the sick way. This narrative which you inherited is fooling you by certain elites, etc., etc. Don't be fooled by that. Let's go to real rationality. That's it. And we go from there, bit by bit, step by step. And every step we go back and check, are we going the right way? That's how we to go. Anyway, next ayah.
Just want to check with you. I did وَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلَّذِينَ خَفِيهِ.
No, not. That's the next one, I think.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The first one is they follow their desires. So nobody can guide someone who Allah let go astray. Nothing can be done about that.
Okay,
does not mean that you stop da'wah. You continue with da'wah, but don't be grieving. Because that's the way the universe is structured. It's its foundation. You have to get yourself under control. You have to save yourself. You can't refer to someone coming from somewhere dying on a cross for you. Nor your father or grandfathers can appeal for you. Nor your children will save you. You have to do it by yourself.
Okay, next time.
Yeah, next.
فأقم وجهك للذين حنيفا فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. And so set thy face steadfastly towards the one ever true faith, turning away from all that is false, in accordance with the natural disposition which God has instilled into man, for not to allow any change to corrupt what God has thus created. This is the purpose of the one ever true faith, but most people know it not. Next translation. So stand firm in your devotion to the faith, inclining to truth, according to the innate nature God has instilled in all people. There is no change in God's creation. This is the correct religion, but most people do not know it.
Yeah, so that's very clear. So then just stand upright, directing your face through the face of Allah, the only necessary existing, the only real deity. And turning away from any other false idea or false deity. And this is easy. This is how the initial creation has been given a headful start by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the headful start. Any contamination comes later. And that should be shunned and rejected. And this done by people who are violating Allah's commandment to be firm and holding to the fitrah. As clearly explained in the hadith which I mentioned now. And this is the right way, and this is the right religion, this is the Deen al-Qayyim, this is the correct and right devotion. But most people do not know that. And the hadith, which is the hadith of Allah said, in Hadith Qudsi, I have created all my creation, all them hunafa, deviating from shirk toward iman, in the fitrah. But then the evil forces, whatever they forces, their parents and the satanic entities, whatever it is, came along and diverted them away from their original fitrah and religion, and commanded them many things. One of them is to associate with their partners. And one of them is to make halal haram, which indicates that the basic ruling is permissibility, not the opposite. So the devil is working to make you, turn you from halal into haram. Establish haram, so which is not haram of Allah Ta'ala. Taking you away from haram to halal is way easy. And the devil is more intelligent to recognize that he will be exposed. But from the halal, he will give you a restriction. No, this should be, you should be cautious. And then you accumulate so many restriction, prohibition, until you become like a Talmud, which nobody can follow, and you become a racist religion, a Satanist, and so on. That's what will do. Don't think it's easy. It's a good step. It's a fantastic step, which leading to destruction. And this is the extremism in religion, which Allah says that that's what destroyed the nation before. So for anything, assume first that it's halal. Allah permitted you, He created you, created the universe for you, created your eyes for it. So everything should be accessible until you have a clear evidence, inshallah, that's excluded from this general permissibility. So you don't need to do filthy qiyas and so on. Allah must have prohibited. That's the religion is prohibition. Allah is standing there with a stick to prohibit everything. That's not true. That's not true. That's all satanic inspiration. Etc. That's hadith of Thaban is very beautiful hadith. And the hadith goes long. Maybe one day we'll make a small piece about it, the exact wording as from various narration as our method, having the exact final wording, and show where the fundamental issues they are playing a role. And I think it's the book of Tawheed concerning permissibility. If it's not there, we will add it there to the issue of basic permissibility. Because it's an absolute calamity when you start that there's no basic rule in Allah's revelation to the creation about everything and every act and so on. No, there's a basic rule. Do it. We have the capability given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a grace, as a gift. The gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be bad. It must be good. Unless things, because there are no universes, there are texts excluded, Allah will point toward these things and warn you from them in a clear way. Simple, straightforward. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No need to discuss anything about things. That's it. That's it. Okay. So that's it.
Okay, next time.
You, Muhammad, follow that. We revive the fitrah in you by revelation, miraculous acts. Yes, fine. So that you can carry the message, the spirit, and bring it to everyone. But many have divided that by their own doing, their own struggle, like Ibrahim and many other people, not only Ibrahim. In history, they got themselves there. It's accessible. Very, very difficult sometimes, very easy sometimes. It's accessible. Unless you decide, oh, this is all impossible, all does not make any sense, there's no resurrection, these are all fairy tales. If you go to these and this way, I can relax. That's desire. The moment you see that, use your reason, slam on the brake, and start thinking. Then there's a hope. Otherwise, you will be gone. Allah will forsake you and you will be gone. Carry on. Next ayah.
منيبين إليه واتقوه وأقيموا الصلاة ولا تكونوا من المشركين. turn then away from all that is false, turning to him alone, and remain conscious of him, and be constant in prayer, and be not among those who ascribe divinity to aught beside him.
Yeah.
Next translation. Turning to him, being ever mindful of him, establishing prayer, and never be from those who associate others with him.
And the second one is much better because he doesn't constant but establish prayer. It's not constantly, no, establishing it. So it's your life is around it. As I said many times, meaning you organize your daytime within human possibilities that fits the prayer time, etc., etc. So your life around prayer will establish, and that is the prayer itself as a technical one, but a prayer used in metaphor for Islam for the whole deen. So establish the whole deen in your life. Whatever comes from Allah, this is you have to establish. Or commandments and so on. And this differs from Sharia to Sharia. The first Sharia we said does not have anything to do, just one thing to shun and avoid. And even Adam did not succeed in commit to that for various reasons we're not discussing now. Is that don't come close to this tree. Because he would listen to the whisper of the devil. Although he was warned, and his wife also, listen, do not come close to the tree, otherwise you will be wicked and unjust. That's all. So what Allah is obliged to tell you when He gives you a prohibition or a command, that's all. This will be this the consequence. You are not allowed to ask why, what's the sense of what I said, because the question itself under my reason, as we discussed so many times. The mere questioning, meaning that you do not understand that you're talking, that's coming from Allah. And what's the meaning of being Allah? So that's it. There was nothing else. Eat anywhere, go naked, whatever. Nobody's asking you anything else. That's it. Carry on. So that's it. Do that. And again, reminder, don't be from the mushrikeen who associate with other partner. Don't join them. Don't associate with them in a matter of creed. And you can live with them, interact with them and so on. But there's an internal ideological separation. That's the bara. If they become hostile and attack, then their separation will be carried out with the sword. But before that, we can never have a good, a deep, loving relation and internal heart connection. No way. We hate your deities and your way of life, and you are at liberty to hate ours. We don't care about what you feel about. But no way we can accept your life. Don't compromise on that. That's a possibility, is a way of living. No. It's the wrong. My belief is the wrong way of life. I cannot accept it. That's one problem with many people, da'wah in the domain of kufr, whatever it is, people in the book or atheists and so on. They try to mince and most likely out of fear. Sometimes the fear forces you that, but generally there's no need to mince. Say, listen, you are my neighbor. I'm nice with you. Everything is fine. Does not mean that I approve that you are having a male partner as a man or a woman as a. This anathema to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is prohibited. It's up to you to comply or not to comply, and the accounting will be Yawm al-Qiyamah. You should at least be able to say that. That's the minimum disassociation for the domain of kufr. Oh, this is another way of life, lifestyle. No, it's not a life. It's not an allowed lifestyle. It may be available by some animals for whatever reason. Although I doubt that, but if it is, because they're searching everywhere to show that it's natural. We're not talking about natural and not natural. The approach is false. Is there a divine command there or not? Period, full stop. Does some animal have it or doesn't have it, that means it's natural or not natural. Because somehow in the background, it is prohibited because it's unnatural. No. It's prohibited because Allah commanded not to do it. Period, full stop. Don't beat around the bush. But this fallacy is sticking in people's mind because many fuqaha and so on went from this false premises and the false definition of hikmah and all of these things. You have to liberate that from yourself. That's it.
We know that in this Sharia there is all the good has been permitted and the khabith
That's have a detailed discussion, but the fundamental principle is that. Monotheist principle is that.
Okay. Let me know when's a good point to stop. The next ayah probably has got a bit of interesting parts to it. So this one is من الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا
كما تقول إذا مشركين من الذين فرقوا دينهم
شيعا كل حزب بما لديه فرحون
بما لديهم
لديهم فرحون. So let me know if you want if this is a good point to stop, or you want to.
No, we will complete this ayah and
okay, sure. Okay. Although, or among those who have broken the unity of their faith and have become sects, each group delighting in but what they themselves hold by way of tenets in brackets. Next translation. Or of those who have split up their faith and divided into sects, every faction rejoicing in what it has.
Yeah. So this is one description, because men here may be mushrikeen who have this attribute. It's not that the mushrikeen are subcategory of these, most likely not. It's not meant for Tawheed, partly. So we hear from this category of things being, which they have split their religion. And that's what used by many Wahhabi and extremists to describe firaq, in reality that they are one of the worst firaq. But that's what happened when you do not digest the book of Allah and compare all the ayahs and make sense out of the whole Quran as the Quran, and then the parts of it within the whole, and essentially ending and making the Quran contradicting itself, negating that it has any relation with being from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By dividing it, you will achieve ultimately by having each part having a certain meaning, and I think that's the only meaning. The ones use the only meaning, by the other meanings which will complement that and complete it, especially in deep and complex things, then you are done, you are finished, you are gone. You have give yourself the red card. So here from Mushrikeen, and it gives one of their main characteristics. They have split their religion. That means the deen. Deen has many meaning, as we said in the book of Tawheed, and many times here. Deen could mean the devotion. So here it's most likely they split their devotion. They are devoted to this deity, to this deity, to this deity. So they will never find a common ground, except being lenient, like for example, some Hindu faction, that all deities are acceptable. So you feel comfortable. No, don't need to treat the others. But the other side of the coin of this, which looks humanity is the most important thing. That's what many modern Hindus say. But the reverse side of that, if that's really a fundamental principle, then anyone who say no, there's only one deity and you have to be with it, will appear to you as an enemy, is anti-human. So you will not find your way. Still, the world will be split and there will be factions fighting against each other. So that's no way. Whatever it is, the moment you have various deities or various devotion directions, except the one and only one, the necessary existing, the eternal, they will be split by devotion, and then will be split by ideology. And the ideology will not be stable. It will be split further. I'll give you an example for Christianity. Pauline Christianity, but we call it Christianity because it's it should be called Paulinity, but if you say you are Paulinity, he will not understand. So we say we should be saying only Pauline Christianity since the Nicene Conference. The Nicene Conference did not establish Trinity, by the way. It has only duality. Father and the Son coming to the world, dying on the cross and suffering for our sake, and so on. That's the first part. And we believe that after we believe in the Holy Spirit, so and so on, was not born, is proceeded. Again, using an obscure word which does not make any sense, but let's be lenient. So people did not have this sharper concept of being born and so on. And being proceeding from the Father, who proceeded from the Father. And shows the most short and reasonable wording, tolerable wording, because there was 7 or 8. I have some of my papers before that, until that was established actually in the Synod of Constantinople. So it's the creed is essentially the Nicene Constantinople Creed, not the Nicene Creed. But I will say Nicene Creed because most people think that this part is also in Nicene. No, it's not in Nicene. The additional, and we believe in that so on. Even that, the Western churches add to it about the Holy Spirit proceeded from the Father, and they add this called Filioque clause, the Son clause, and the Son. Proceeded from the Father and the Son. They added that later, most likely, after the 900 something or about around 1000, most likely. Someone must follow the history and see how it looks like. But the Western church, the Eastern churches deny that, rejected. It's proceeded from Father alone. So that's an issue that created considerable problem of the divine being. Two different types of divine being in this way, etc., etc., etc. God from God, light from light, etc. And all of them are being worthy of prostrating for and so on. Now, so that's the Nicene Creed. You are saved if you have only the two. You don't have the three. Later on, that's added. Anyway, I'm just making a joke. So this is all nonsense in reality. Whatever you turn it, it turns into a So the picture is that the Father is usually regarded as higher. Definitely is the origin. And it's presented in churches. When you see these glass windows, they have two main rows or two main columns. And in the top, in the middle one, in the top, there's a crown. That's pointing or representing the Father, God the exalted majesty. And to his right, and that's to your left, but for his right is the sacrificial lamp, a lamp carrying a cross on his shoulder. That's representing the sacrificed son. And in the left, in his left to your right is a white dove. This inscription, and the white dove in the equal. That's what the Orthodox Church of the East says. That's the correct way. These two are equal in rank, and they proceed from the Father. So we have this this looks more logical. Obviously, the whole structure is fundamentally internally contradictory. But anyway, while the Western churches, the Catholics, insist no, this triangle is like this. Looks quite ugly, actually. Actually, the right hand of the crown is higher than. So we don't have a nice equitriangle. We have a triangle like that. I need you to enjoy the picture anyway. But what depicted in the churches, even the West, is what suggests that these two on the same level. There's no way any suggestion anywhere that they are not on the same level. So still there's the ancient, and many of these churches are built before the year 1000 and so on. Ancient churches are still preserved with this, with the glass, stained glass and so on. So it seems to me this is a later addition. And this erupted the conflict between the Eastern Orthodox churches and so on. Before that, there were only essentially one church with various bishops and so on. Well, the Bishop of Rome claimed that because he in the seat of Peter, and Paul is having a higher rank and regarded generally as really the main head of the Christianity. After that, they split. The one there is the Pope of this and the Pope. They don't recognize and they curse each other. And this developed even the calendar adopted by the Western one, which is very rational. The Georgian is rejected by the Eastern one until today. So Eastern is a different day. So that's all. So they split their religion, their devotion now. So even if you are devoted to the Holy Spirit as an oikonom or the personality of the Trinity, you will be upset as an Eastern Christian that he has demoted down below the sun. The Western will be upset that you have promoted him above his appropriate rank. The Son must be higher. So the Father, Son, and so on. Because they split their acknowledgement of the divine rank, which should not exist because there's no divine rank. There's only one divine being. Nothing to be ranked there. No substance, nothing. The whole thing is nonsensical. Contradicts necessity of reason. But that's how it happened. And that's what's and centuries went to defend that and develop all kinds of models and examples. All of them have been refuted until now. None of them. Maybe two explanations. I didn't take a look to them because there are 14 ways to explain that. And all is listed in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy under the title Trinity. You can check them if you want. 12 have been shown by the encyclopedia. They contradict the principle of identity, meaning the principle of necessity, fundamental necessity, that contradiction are not possible. How? Identity means that the thing is identical to itself. The most basic thing of rationality. If the thing can differ than himself, then we can have contradiction. That's all. And two, they do not comment on it. I must read that and see what's it. Most likely, it's a metaphor and have another contradiction in the back door. But I didn't read them, I cannot judge them. So the 12 explanations can be checked out, finished. The two last ones maybe can be, maybe one of them is that what St. Augustine is actually called the monarchic point of view. It's actually one, but they are various images of the same somehow. But that's definitely is not a trinity. If it is the Creator, that's the reason they regard this. They are shocked that St. Augustine says something like that. Maybe this one, I don't know. I have to read that more carefully, but I didn't bother about reading it because the fundamental starting point is that the divine can be a multiplicity, or there could be a substance from which various divine can be formed. That's not the characteristic of a necessarily existing being. That's a characteristic of contingent being. Like you have a substance called iron, and you can shape from it a horseshoe, and you can create a tank battle barrel, gun barrel. The same substance. Different things that can't happen because there's no substance called divine substance. It's only one entity. Concept of substance does not apply there. It's a fallacy. So the whole thing collapses from the start of the definition anyway. So we don't need too much about the details of Trinity and the various explanation of them. But it may be enjoyable to work with it a little bit if someone likes that. So that's type of tafarruq fi din. So their devotion and respect of these various entities different, and then the issues of the law and so on, and the standing will be different, and theology will be different, and people start fighting and killing each other. And each party is happy with that, what they have think is the ultimate truth. But the ultimate truth is that only one necessary existing being is the center of reality and meaning and purpose. He is the first and last, and the most eminent and the most transcendent. That's it. Or they say in the New Testament, the Alpha and the Omega, first and the last. They don't have this second one which have in the Quran. وهو الأول والآخر, that's the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. والظاهر والباطن, the most apparent and the most remote, or the most transcendent, and the batin, the most intrinsic, the most internal. So it's almost touching you without touching you, and infinitely far away if the word infinitely far makes any sense and existence rank. والأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن وهو بكل شيء عليم. Despite all of that, his knowledge extends to everything. And from the various discourse, we know things, real things, not possibilities. These are not real things, and they cannot become things until Allah decides to make them things. That's it. No trinity, no duality, no nonsense. Absolutely nothing of this. Yeah, so that's the mushrikeen with فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا. And then everyone is happy with that. Nobody will be unhappy to stay in such situation. You must be happy with that what you allegedly achieved. Otherwise, your life would be miserable. You wouldn't be settled. You would be all the time waking at night, screaming, "What's the truth?" So you have to make yourself happy. Oh, I have the ultimate truth. I am on the right path. I can sleep peacefully. You have to tell yourself that. كل حزب بلد, each party are completely pleased and jubilant about what they have. We have it. Here. You are deviants. You are SOBs. You are that, and you are that, and you are that. So if you make all your devotion to the only one necessary existing, then this should not be happy. But still, inside that, some people who become close to shirk will invent. So usually it will be like happy inventing issues about asking the people, who is Allah? And that's where they start to split the people. And they start making them appear to be a sinner or kuffar, because they also try to split the devotion. Maybe initially because of ignorance and not reading the Quran comprehensively and recognize, I am an ignorant. I should stay simple ignorant and ask the knowledgeable. Instead, no, I am. These guys are compounded ignorance. They're ignorant and they do not know that they're ignorant, and they refuse to admit their ignorance, so they will never look for knowledge. Say, no, you're wrong. Don't start without any evidence. And then this is the way of the destruction. So when we talk about Shia and deviant and so on, classify them, that's because they are deviant. Their devotion is something which is not the truth. Divine being, their understanding is not the correct one. Definition of divinity, definition of God, of Ilah, definition of Rabb is wrong. Unfortunately, catastrophic error, as we explained in detail in the book of Tawheed. So they are devoted to a concept which does not reflect the real fundamental reality, which is enshrined in the Quran if you read it carefully and digest it. But shallow reading will lead to that, based on the wrong methodology. Correct methodology, as I said, read the whole Quran from cover to cover. Simple-minded, I'm ignorant, I'm simpleton. But clearly there's aspects I can see. Then some ayahs look like a bit disturbing and different. So how can I put them together? Can I put it? I can't. Ask the knowledge. I can, then I will go. Next step, next step, next step. Then I have such a knowledge that generally I will not take one outside of Islam or attack him or disturb him or test him unless definitely I have definite proof based on deep study and taking all the Quran translation. That's not the case done by them, nor by Ibn Taymiyyah, nor by most scholars in time past. Unfortunately, that's happened historically. We have to acknowledge that and overcome it.
Just linking back what you said earlier, the assumption of Ahmed bin Hanbal that a certain body of people have absolute knowledge of this, and then they become the gatekeepers for that.
Yeah.
This, I don't know if this is inevitable due to lack of knowledge, or it's when someone insists.
It's irrelevant. But
this, I can see this as being a cause of a lot of this.
Yeah.
That mentality, because, so for example, I was watching another video.
But it doesn't matter how it came. That's if you study history. That's not relevant for the issue. What the statement itself shows that it does not represent Quran Sunnah comprehensively. For example, the issue which shows we tortured and so on, and that will give him the fame, is that he refused to say that Quran is created or not created. That's right. He say, bring me something, comparing everything of Allah. He was still holding himself together. After he was released, he started, maybe under the pressure, maybe under the instigation of students and so on, maybe of the intelligence service guys there, hidden people, because we know that from our time how they put implants in your study circle, and they get you bit by bit to the direction they want. If they notice weaknesses in their arguments and so on, or weaknesses in your rational capacity, and they get you there and there. Bit by bit, they persuaded him to talk about that Quran is غير مخلوق. Okay, this is a fallacy or truth, that does not matter. Then he stepped further down. Now he went crossed our lines by saying anyone who says, or anyone who stops saying makhluk or not makhluk is bid'ah and should be forsaken. And attacked many first class muhaddithin because they did not make any assertion about that. So just they don't make an assertion is enough for them to be forsaken. And then he added at the end, insult to injury, that the Quran is not makhluk for Satan. I will say makhluk is a kafir. Meaning, a kafir, meaning out of the whole Islam, meaning he has something contradicting the Quran and Sunnah. And this is a calamity which have no cure. Not because the statement is false. It is false, but not because of that. Not makhluk or not makhluk. The statement with the Quran is clear. ما يأتيهم من ذكر من ربهم محدث. Muhdath meaning invented, new, not previously existing. And this, if you want to call it makhluk or muhdath, is essentially the same. So the Quran itself is giving you other. And there are the hadith. One is narrated as a second khutbah of the Messenger of Allah when he arrived Medina in Bil Ishaq, that he started. The first khutbah is the famous one. يا أيها الناس أفشوا السلام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا الأرحام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخل جنة. People spread peace, greeting of peace, feed the hungry, pray at night, connect your next of kin, and then you will enter paradise easily, bisalam, peacefully, with no previous punishment. That's the first khutbah. The second khutbah in Ibn Ishaq, I remember seeing it. I could not find it because at the wedding, maybe I don't remember. He said he is encouraging the people to devote and focus on the book of Allah, reading and understanding, and say, wa alaykum bil Quran, it is the greatest creation of Allah. With this word exact, أعظم ما خلق الله. No, he can get away from that. Say, oh, this is Ishaq Mudallis, we cannot rely on him. You can, and this may be one of the reasons he's attacking him, to get away from this one. But how to get away from the ayah? So it's false, but independent, false and true. If you don't have an irrefutable, absolute evidence, and Muhammad is not a man of this level of evidences anyway, then how can you talk about that? Just say, the same way which you're under the whip, saying, bring me a compelling evidence from the book of Allah. The other side were donkey also. They did not mention the ayah. Otherwise, they would have put him in the corner. But they didn't, because if they started also from false premises. And the wise ones who said, we don't say either, say it's the speech of Allah. How it is being delivered to us is a creation act or another something else, we don't care. It's the speech of Allah. It must be attributed to him. It's not the speech of Muhammad or anybody else. These are condemned by Ahmed Hanbal. Oh, I don't like them. They are mubtadi'. I prefer nobody narrated from them. And so some of them even insulted this way, that he prohibited the people from narrating from them. Imagine. And this is then based on the Hanbali based their religion and exercised, made it, tried to enforce the people if they were doing terrorism in Baghdad. Read the Tabari. So in this year, there was a fitness al-Hanabila. They stoned and attacked some scholar like Tabari. They threw his house with stones until it was covered. And the ruler of that part of the city, well, it was, I think, multiple rulers with a huge city, came and with force and needed to remove the stones. Otherwise, they would have died inside. It was impossible to remove from inside. Why? Just because they said, Ahmed Hanbal is a muhaddith, but he's not a faqih. He doesn't have understanding to the Jewish fiqh. So, and others, just read the Tabari. And the year so and so on, there was fitnat al-Hanabila in Baghdad. And the year so, fitnat al-Hanabila in Baghdad. Became like government thugs, essentially. We know now that's most likely connected with the government. It doesn't happen from just simple people. Must be some governments there, like Madkhali and so on. Most of them are infested by government and intelligence services. But this requires a historical study and so on for this aspect. But they were wrong? Yes, from Sharia point of view. Definitely they were. Absolutely certainly they were. But we established proofs from Quran and Sunnah mutawatir. There's no discussion. This Ahmed Hamid is the same man who was asked in early phases in the year before 222. Why? Because it was in the halaqah of Al-Mu'iti. Al-Mu'iti died 222. Mu'iti is one descent from Ibn Abi Mu'it, but doesn't know the way descent. He's a scholar. In the halaqah was Ahmed Hanbal, Al-Mu'iti, another one is not mentioned, I think Ibn Abi Khaythama, and Yahya ibn Ma'in. So four big, allegedly big authorities of hadith. And someone brought a question or discussed with them about the hadith Ammar taqul fi al-Baghiyah. So they said it came from 28 channels of narrations. 28. I didn't find until now. I have complete research. It will come out soon, inshallah, as a miracle in the book of Tawheed, but also other things. 28. None of them is sahih. None of them is sahih. I checked, and people checked in time past. Various channels, one from Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, one in a Muslim from Salama, one in this, one in this, one in this, about 6 channels to 6 Sahabi, who is impossible that have a cooperation between them because they belong to various parties and various issues, especially the issue of Uthman, someone with Uthman, someone against Uthman, is Sahih, well established. So that's refuting the claim. So that even hadith scholar, they most likely they did for political reason or afraid of the government for some reason. Maybe that's an excuse. I don't care about the excuse. But the reality, they said that. Later on, he was asked about Ammar taqtuluhu fi al-Baghiyah. Most likely asked, is it authentic or not? Now, in a later phase of time, he could not. He say, yes, قتلته الفئة الباغية. That's well established that transcript. I don't say anything more than that. It is safer for me. Meaning, I don't want to indulge who is the fi'ah baghi. Is it Muawiyah or the other side? It's the only. So he ran away from that because he cannot forsake his idol Muawiyah. Just keep that. We don't go into these nightmare area. And there are many other things which put question mark on this man. But whatever he is, whatever excuse he has, he should not have gone in the nightmare of takfir anybody, and he doesn't have the tools, and he's not qualified. He's not a man of ilm al-kalam or philosophy or mantiq. He's a man of hadith. That he is even not a man of fiqh is clear. And there's some issues, I will ask, someone told me, but I know it is well established, in which he has 10 points of views. One Sahabi says something, oh, this is a point of view, I have put it ahead of my area point of view, then put it. Then someone bring another hadith, maybe better, it's not, he put it. So in some issues up to 10, usually 2 or 3 aqwal, statements of Ahmad bin Hanbal. This is not a hallmark of aqid, that's muhaddith. And he himself said, if something comes from Sahaba, I'll never put my point of view ahead of their point of view. Which is a fallacy. If you are really faqih, you know this is a fallacy. It can't be like that. Because they're not infallible, but he doesn't even reach that level of basic rationality. And they made him the big imam, the one saved Islam in the fitna, the same way Abu Bakr saved Islam in Ridda, blow him out of proportion. None of that is true. By evidences of his son narrating and the people, his students narrating from him in the books of Sunnah for Ahmad bin Hanbal. So his son Abdullah ibn Ahmad and Al-Khalal and Al-Athram and so on. They mention stories and they mention with admiration. These people look where they with open eyes, but they are blind. They don't see how gross and disgusting what comes from him. They regard it as a virtue. Something blatantly disgusting. They say, oh yeah, it's good, it's good. For example, there was discussion where Sheikh, I think Ahmed Hamad presented, and they mentioned that in time past, Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani heard that Abu Uwana came back from Kufa with a writing about a hadith from A'mash, which contains that what they don't like. So Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani sent one of his students who narrated the story. His students narrated the story. Sheikh, tell Abu Uwana gently and cunningly that we want his books to copy from him. Okay, he told Abu Uwana, trusted the man, gave him his book. Trust. He took to Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani, he bans the book. Akrahim is a trust. All that you can do, you copy it and refute it if you want. No. Or tell the people, don't listen to what it's all fabrication, all lies. That's the correct way. He bans the book. Which doesn't help very much because Abu Uwana memorized it anyway, but it weakens this. In the future, if someone referred Abu Uwana and say, oh, his book is banned, we cannot trust his narration. Okay, that's evil of the past. That's maybe a century before, when the discussion was Hakim Norahawi. Now, this story is mentioned in some criticized. This is a break of trust. What does Hakim Norahawi says? No, I would do the same now. This is worthy of condemnation. He's protecting Islam. I don't want to open this chapter. So the people say you're attacking the cause of Islam and so on. But we should be aware about that when it comes to discussion with these people. Stop there. We don't want to dig that. I remember when I was in prison, interrogated. At the end, they would try claiming that they want to learn from my wisdom and so on. I know this is from the Ministry of Interior, and they sent questions by fax because the two doing the interrogation are donkeys. They don't know the tail of a donkey from his head. So this question comes from them. And one day they come with questions, say, we appreciate your point of view and so on, but we hear that you attack Muawiyah and claim this and this and this. So I told the guy called Abdullah Shibreen. At the time, he was declared himself as Abu Abdullah. Never mentioned his name, but I knew his name from backgrounds. Said, you don't know these issues and you have no background there. That is not from you. This is from Ministry of Interior. Fax them back. We asked Massari this question. He said, don't open such question in the future ever, because if you start digging the grave of Muawiyah, we will get snakes and scorpions. Keep it there. Don't open it now. That was the year 92, 93, in the winter of that year, 92, 93. Yeah, it must be that 93. Yeah, that's the one. or 93, 94, no, 92, 93. Maybe not. One of them. No more question like that came. Some madkhali or idiot sitting there and writing that. Not these idiots making the interrogation. That was not an interrogation, like a friendly discussion at the end, after the initial phase of whipping and so on, and beating and so on. Now they pretend to be good and so on. So I'm telling everyone now, maybe it's also especially to Adnan Rashid, just stop there. Don't force us to dig these graves. Leave the people in their graves and let's go to the objective arguments and let's read Quran and Sunnah properly. After verifying the Sunnah and getting the correct meaning, wording of the Hadith, or establish the tawatur piece of it, and the same with the Quran after synchronizing all of it and make it enlighten each other and support each other. Don't come with half of an ayah or a quarter of ayah, like the misguided people who cut the Quran into pieces. That's it. I think we stop here.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah, sure.
What's the time now?
The time is 4:25. We'll do some question and answer. Not too many questions. We're going to keep it short. Got a brother who's got his hand raised. Let me just ask him to unmute.
Yeah.
Brother, I've allowed you to unmute if you want to. Okay. Can't hear you yet.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. Yeah, assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Gosh. So, Sheikh, please, I have a sincere question about something.
Yeah.
So, on what basis do Muslims seem to have developed hierarchy among prophets? Specifically, why is Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam commonly reserved for Prophet Muhammad, while other prophets are mentioned with the, Alayhi Salam instead? Is there like a clear evidence from the Quran and the authentic Sunnah? And for me, it seems like the Quran seems to indicate that we should regard all the prophets on an equal footing, Sheikh. So
yeah, no doubt, but this has not an equal footing, because the word used by the old prophet, Salamun al Mursaleen, he was salam, no, or blessing like on Ibrahim and so on, barakatullah alaykum ala al-bayt and so on. But doesn't mention salah except for in the case of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So it became a tradition. But you can see about Ibrahim, yes, sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
Yeah, sure, exactly. So it's because a lot of Muslims like
no, it's just a habit. It's just a habit.
No, Sheikh. What I mean by that is that in Sunni tradition, I don't know about Shi'i, but in Sunni tradition,
the same will be there.
No, Sheikh. I'm talking about something else now. So they say that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best of prophets. He's the best of human beings, etc., etc. But
the reason for that is because he has certain characteristics mentioned in the Quran, and he himself said, "Ana sayyidu waladi Adam wala fakhr." There is a hadith in this direction, but without being proud of that, but establishing the fact. So they relied on that. So I don't think this is a big issue worthy of. And he himself commanded nobody should start ranking the prophets between themselves. After the dispute of Abu Bakr with this one Jewish scholar, I don't remember his name at the moment. His name Finhas, yeah. And Finhas said to provoke Abu Bakr, or according to his belief, والذي فضل موسى على العالمين. Abu Bakr said, you mean he is even superior to Muhammad? He said yes. So he slapped him. So Finhas would complain to Prophet, and Abu Bakr came and said, he said that the Prophet did not rebuke Finhas, did not address Finhas. Addressed Abu Bakr, said, لا تفاضل بين أنبياء الله. In the day of resurrection, when I wake up, I will see Musa hanging on the pillars of the throne. I don't know, is he giving this special rank, or because he suffered one shock on the Mount Sinai, and this is sufficient for him instead of a shock of Yom Al-Qiyamah. Let's keep it open. So he advised against that. And that's the reason I say, if we advise not to make a distinction and ranking the prophets, even if the Quran says Allah فضل بعضهم على بعض clearly, but
yes,
we don't know his ranking, we should not, unless he ranked it clearly, etc. Then based on that, we should abstain from ranking them if that's for the prophets who are definitely highly drunk and they have ranks between them, then we should avoid ranking the Sahaba. But nobody is obeying that, unfortunately. So these are diseases of history and partisanship and confrontation between Ahlul Bayt and Sahaba and accusation. It's not an important question. All what you can do is that you try to make sure that whenever you mention Salah alayhi wa sallam, you say Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, because that is clearly indicated in the Salah Ibrahimiyya, and the Salah is all that in Salah and narrated sufficiently strong to be tawatur.
Yes, I understand, Sheikh. I understand.
So that's this is not an issue. Don't make an issue there.
No, Sheikh. I'm not making an issue about that. It's just
it is so secondary. I suggest just gloss over it. And if someone say about Tafseer, okay, maybe Ibrahim should sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because we have started Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم. So in the case of Salah, for that, not because of that, in the Quran there's a clear order. اللهم عليك تصلوا على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. It's clearly there. And about the المرسلين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. So that's it.
Yes, I understand what you say, Sheikh, but I think you didn't get like the idea with my question. So, I mean, as Muslims, it's normal like to like love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than any prophet, you know. And
yeah, that's natural. There's no problem with that.
Exactly. That's
but
what
it has reason. I mentioned that is I say getting in that area, meaning you are getting the mentality of this is related to this very, and the Prophet said that to father bin al-Anbiya. Leave the Mufadala to Allah and His Messenger, and He did whatever necessary in that direction.
Exactly.
Brother, the people are not complying with that. Is the historic issue. You can study it if you want. Go ahead and study it. That's it. The more you comment on the issue, the moment it becomes bigger than its proportion. That's it. It does not exclude that objective when they start to be like that, when less than that.
Like what I meant, it's just like
for example, I'll tell you the following story. I don't want to go into that. It's to waste time for no good reason. Let me tell you. But someone said in the presence of this mentally retarded Fawzan, who is now the current Mufti of Saudi Arabia, said, why don't we say always Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Say, ala alihi, this is for the Shia, it's not for us. And this donkey is the Mufti of Saudi Arabia. So there will be many donkeys also following him. That's all. Don't make an issue there, brother.
True. Sheikh, I 100.
My advice, it is not worth our discussion now, but I clarify the main point. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, Sheikh, if you don't want like to talk about this more, it's
not useful. Nothing will be achieved there. I gave you the answer for certain questions, and the other one answer is historic development.
Yes. What I meant by that, Sheikh, I wanted your opinion because I think that this problem makes like Islam more like about the prophets and less about like the universality of the message. You
that
know?
may be, but it doesn't make it. It is they subnote, but the universality is also forsaken already. In many aspects, more important than this verbal expression. It has already taken in many issues.
It's not just verbal expression, Sheikh. It's like all over the Muslim world. There is like this habit, you know, of putting like a prophet as better than
this is the prophet said to them, and the final one, and the Sharia abrogated is only memories. But reality, if you look at reality, you find between Muslims considerable more love for Isa and Isa than Musa. Emotionally, because the mention of Maryam in the Quran, consider more love to Maryam than most prophets, and admiration. So this is emotional things related to certain situation, and that the Christians are usually closer to Muslims, and in time past at least they were giving hospitality in Habasha and so on, and the Quran commended many of them of that. So and then condemned the Jews and so on with the mushrikeen, that they are more cunning and evil as a general rule, and a specific because of a specific issue in this creed. So people comply with that, and history shows both subscribe and deny. Okay.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't second that, unless you think there must be something in history, historic mishap. Let me analyze it so we can rebuild better now with these even, I would say this is issues of secondary wisdom, ornamentation. We have fundamentally more problems than that. Fundamentally more problems than that. Absolute fundamentally more problems. Yeah, okay.
I think it's part of the problem. That's what I meant, Sheikh. It's part of like the Wahhabi like.
I would say more problem is that in usual in the Sunni circles they say salatu wa salam ala Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. The word ajma'in is catastrophic. Yeah, that you should study how it started and put your support in there. That's what must be fought because sahbihi ajma'in, except the sabiqin awwalin and the badri, which are really established to be. Some of these sahbi in the linguistic meaning, but this is a research which will come soon, inshallah, will shock many people. Some of the Sahaba, by the Prophet's statement, not one or two, maybe 10, 20 hadith, independent and dependent occasions, say, hum ashabi munafiqun, kada ashabi, etc. So the word Sahaba is used by Quran and Sunnah, meaning this companionship in the general sense. In one place or a hint, that it may be only should be reserved for the preferred one, but this will not override the overwhelming things like that. So this is that putting is that to sneak the munafiqeen under them and specifically to save Muawiyah. Now here we are in business. That's where we're going. But other thing is minor. Trust me.
Talking about that, Sheikh, just one question about that, about Muawiyah and the munafiqeen among the Sahaba. So I noticed that there is like some sort of like automatic responses from like neo-Salafis. When you talk about like munafiqin among the Sahaba, they will all say the same things. Is there like some hasbara, like some sort of hasbara, like book?
No, this is establishes Ahmad bin Hanbal and so on. We don't, and the Aqidah Tahawiyah, we don't, we love all the Sahaba and so on. We assume if they make an error, it's by ijtihad with good intention. That's all imaginary things, and they put it in the book of the Aqaid and became deep entrenched, and removing it will be difficult. That's the reason our book about the definition of Suhba and the ranks of Sahaba will be a shock, because many of these issues can be set by certain Quran, absolutely narrated tawatur, so that no escape. And they're showing that their definition of Sahaba, and they rely on the definition of Suhba, that's what Ibn Hajar for. So that did it to make it for the taqrib to ranking the Sahaba. But this is internally contradictory. It doesn't produce the result he wanted. And this is exposing our writing. So wait for our writing to come. This is worth working for. The other things I think just.
So Sheikh, about Muawiyah, I noticed something about Karbala. So there is like, I noticed some trend among Sunnis sheikhs or Sunnis ustads, let's say. They are like now making like videos about that and narrating it like from their point of view. Was this like always the case, or is it like a new thing, like from like nowadays? Because I didn't notice that.
What I mean always? What they are narrating? What they saying about Karbala?
When it comes to Karbala, they are starting to narrate it like from a certain point of view, Sheikh.
What's the tell me what's the certain point of view? Don't hedge.
Oh, well, I mean, it depends on the person, but in general, like they put the blame on Hussein.
He's rebellious and so on. No, this is
things like that. So.
This is relatively new in this form, because they were confronted. They usually say, "You don't rebel against the rule," and there's kufr buah. And then then if Hussein is brought to them as an example, and they will face the problem, is Yazid showing kufr buah? Is he a kafir or not kafir? But they don't want to go in that because of that, because he was chosen and appointed by Muawiyah. This would demolish Muawiyah. So you say he's a fasiq, etc., and so on, and should not be rebelled against him. And what's about Hussein? And they get stuck. And then now they have the courage to say, in the recent centuries maybe, or recently, is that he's wrong. He's mujtahid, has the best intention, as usual, said Muawiyah on the other side, but he was wrong. He should not have rebelled. That's what that's the reality. This way is the view. I don't remember anyone in the Tariq al-Islam who said otherwise, except Nasibi. For example, Abdullah ibn Ahmad, when when Al-Mutawakkil, who was a Nasibi, demolished the grave of Hussein and so on, because there was a grave, he demolished it and turned it into a garden, things like that. There was really counter act by the people, and they were writing on walls and so on. And ultimately, it ended with a rebellion of the soldiers and killing Al-Mutawakkil. But during that time, the question was put forward. So Abdullah asked his father cautiously. They claim, the people, يزعمون أنك تتولى يزيد, that you are allied with Yazid, the other. And he said, can anyone ally with Yazid? Anyone who believes in Allah, Day of Judgment, can ally with Yazid after what he did to the people of Medina? But even there, although he admitted he cannot escape that what he did to Medina, with various narration, is cannot be accepted. He did not classify it, unfortunately, and it's a weakness of his fiqh or cowardice. I don't know what's it, because what did in Medina is a manifest kufr. No doubt about that. No, absolutely. If he's not a kafir before, this made him a kafir. If you collect all the narrations, absolutely kufr. And the bay'ah taken after that, which is narrated by everyone, is he forced the people to give bay'ah that they are slave of Yazid in the obedience of Allah and disobedience. That's a clear kufr, manifest. So he was forced because there was almost public upheaval. So it shows that there were some people who claiming that the scholars of hadith are allying with Yazid and so on. He said it is not to that extreme, but he stopped there. He did not add any more, which really brings question mark about his fiqh, at least, if not about his really proper Islamic commitment. So it's involved, but
Also,
to the level going to that Al-Yazid, Hussein rebellion, that he's wrong and he's was a sinner. This was claimed by the Yazid camp, because when they confronted, you killed the grandson of the Prophet, he said, we killed him with the sword of his grandfather. He ordered to kill anyone who rebelled against the ruler. That's what they claimed, the people of Sham. That's from the time of Sham. We did not kill him with another sword except the sword of his grandfather. Meaning he's doing things which against what his grandfather allegedly ordered, which is not true. But this will be all discussed in the book of Muawiyah and the result of Al-Hasan surrender Khilafah to him and so on.
Also, bear in mind, to put all Sunnah in the same camp and saying that they all have the same thing, to differentiate, Madkhalis all have one point of view. I know, for example,
that is recently is just to justify the current government, because if they admit that, then they will, their rule of that obedience except for kufr bu'an, which they means that the ruler must be himself a kafir, and all of these things will be flying away, will be gone.
Also, there's an encouraging trend as well. People questioning. So, for example, Tom Fashini, for example, has I can't recall if he's spoken about this specifically, but he's bringing things to light as well. And also Salman, Sheikh Salman Nadwi, rahimahullah, opening certain issues up. So the point is to put, just like the Shia, the Ahl Sunnah put all Shia in one camp, the other side put all Sunni in one camp, as if we all sit there scheming to undermine the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ, as if we're all one entity involved in this activity, or all one entity in subservience to rulers. So that's an important differentiation. So the encouraging aspect is when people do start to speak out, it's to propagate that voice, and to if for example you come across a video which has misconceptions, send it over. Inshallah, we can maybe prepare something. If you find something which is elucidates some truth in it and needs to be magnified or amplified, send it over as well, inshallah, because this is how we start to make inroads into this issue.
But the current one saying this, like in Saudi Arabia, Al-Fawzan and so on, and Madkhali, Al-Fawzan is mentally retarded. I would not make him accountable, but what he says is mental retardation. That's good. Man is maybe the pen is lifted upon him, maybe. But the other Madkhali and so on, most likely they're intelligence service agents and they're munafiq kafir anyway. That's my judgment generally. Knowing some of them, that's not haphazard. I know some of them, and people know some of them, like Rabi' al-Madkhali himself. We have witnesses from university professors, I'm not self-minded, that they have relation and connection to people in Mabahith, and they saw in the Musayyarat, in the list of salaries and so on, his name and his rank in Mabahith. and he's receiving salary. I think he was having the rank of Ra'id. Ra'id is like major. That's the one above 3 stars. Because you have 1 star is lieutenant, 2 stars is second lieutenant, and then captain 3 stars or something, and then 4 Ra'id. That's what they claimed. And many people asserted that. They saw that. But I don't need to see it really to believe them, because all his behavior, way his work is the way of Mabah. I was present in such an occasion, which is clearly the act of Mabahith people. Maybe I should narrate the story and then we stop there. This needs really a complete book about Muawiyah and so on. We need to rebuild it again. After the Hajj in the year where the incident of the Turkish with the Saudi police happened, they organized something, and then somehow they have an instruction that at a certain time of the day in Arafat, they block the road. So some Turkish came late, obviously because the roads are so blocked for Hajj. In such a way, they came late, and they came to the barrier and told the police people of Saudi Arabia, listen, our camp is inside. Told them we cannot get in. Arafat is full. So we see here gaps, we can go to our camp and park there. Say, no, we'll not go in. Now, these Turks are usually hot-blooded, hotheads. They came down and beat the police up and moved the barrier and went in. It was covered up by Saudi media. It's a scandal. Especially Turkey is a powerful country, and they're not Shia, so you cannot blame it on the Shia as usual. So this went for... After Hajj, people were discussing that always in public circles. We were attending a place where Ibn Uthaymin happened to be there. I know Ibn Uthaymin from face and so on, but I didn't know Rabi' al-Madkhali. So I started trying to open the issue. I say, Sheikh, not the issue of the beating us, I'm saying. What happened is regretful. This is Hajj where everyone should abstain from violence. Not beating up each other. It's worse than jidal. But these Turks must be excused because they confronted, and the police people may be also accused because the one put them did not educate them. So I think there's one, but maybe it's true that Arafat is full. So we need a fatwa and to educate the Muslim over there that when Arafat is really full, assume it is really full. It's really full. First, educate the police that put it only if they say it's full, nobody can move. That's the first one. That needs education. Then they put the barrier, say it's full, but we have a fatwa that outside Arafat, Arafat is now extended by necessity. So you don't need these it's not a barbed wire. The wire there will, that is just nominal according to old tradition. And the time passed, it was not enough. Now, regardless, it is extended. So camp outside, you are in Arafat. No problem. That's Arafat. We need such a fatwa. So I wanted to start commenting on that. And the guy in Tafseer said, but Sheikh, one quick question before that. Some people came and do dhabh, slaughtering before this and this. The classical, stinky old question, which we have the classical, stinky answers. Do it in any order, it's okay. From the hadith of Rasulullah. Barely anyone disagree with that in the fuqaha historically. These manasik are well described. These Hajj manasik. And then he indulged in that and he argued with him. I said, this guy is suspect. Why he comes in this point and interject, because the Ibn Uthaymin would be comment about the rulers and their obligation and so on, the hot area. And this one wanted to prevent him. The only way in this Hajj gathering, that was, I think, we were in Mina later, yeah, or in a house after Hajj or something like that. No, I think someplace in Mina. Who is this guy? I said, you don't know him. I said, no. Someone who looks like a rat. She don't know him. I said, no. Say, this is Dr. Rabi' Madkhali. So this man is suspicious. That's without knowing his name. They said, so Rabi' Madkhali, the great Salafi scholar, so on, turns out to be a man of secret service. Because this way of interjecting cannot be from someone who is honest and the one who really cares about the ruling of Allah and solution of even simple Hajj problems and wish really to meet Allah as a believer. It looks like a munafiq. Looks like a filthy mabahith dog. For me, mabahith dogs are even filthy swines. And from that day, I knew the man must be somehow mabahith. Then when I hear that witness from someone saying we see him in the list of musayyarat and his rank and ratib, salary. I said, that must be true. Yeah. Is enough of that? We stop here. Is enough. Otherwise, our gathering will be just gathering of hate and mutual insult without evidences. We do the evidences, then you can insult whatever you want, or we know what these people are and just stop there.
One more slightly controversial one was mention of Daniel Hagigatu recently put a video where Abdurrahman Khamis is talking about the Patriot US base and saying about those people. He was kind of like lauding the Kuwaiti soldiers who are defending the Muslims from Iran.
Yeah, he's sort of extreme, but most like he's intelligent operatives. Or he's so ignorant, is unbelievable, because he denies even that Bani Umayyah were cursing Ali on the pulpit, which is not known by Talawatur, is so obvious and clear, nobody can deny it. And the reason for that, most likely, because he knew if he established that, then it leads immediately that Muawiyah started that. And starting that is so grave, no Sunni or nobody will tolerate that, because it seems to be there's sufficient evidence that insulting Ali this way is an act of kufr, because with the hadith of Salama and many other hadith that Ali walaya and Ali rank in Islam is matter of protection of his dignity and so on from being sweared at is the same like the Prophet. And that's what Salama said, wrote to Muawiyah in the narration of his fortunate him, some secondary books, not in the original books. It has been removed there. Ancient time. The same disease of devoting to the idol of Muawiyah, which will expose, inshallah. Don't worry about that. So it seems to be from these all evidences together, it is Ali is having a special standing. Attacking the Sahaba and insulting them is a major sin. Actually, any believer, because Allah said in the Quran, the definite ayah, إن الذين يؤذون الله ورسوله لعنهم الله في الدنيا والآخرة وأعد لهم عذابا مهينا. Those who hurt or slander Allah and His Messenger are cursed in dunya and akhirah. Red card out. And they for them they prepared a disgracing punishment. This is used only for kufr. And then after that, it doesn't mention Sahaba. المؤمنين والذين يؤذون المؤمنين والمؤمنات بغير ما اكتسبوا فقد احتملوا بهتانا وإثما مبينا. So those who hurt or slander the believing woman and the believing female woman, men and women, without a cause for that, because the believer can commit something, they were to be attacked and slandered. Those who do that without evidence, without reason, they have loaded themselves with buhtan, with a fabrication and false testimony, and ithman mubina, and evident sin, but not kufr. There's nothing indicating clear kufr there. And the Sahaba are the mu'mineen. Now Ali ibn Talib is one of them. Abu Bakr is one of them. Umar is one of them. But for Ali, there are so many other evidences showing that he must be added to the Messenger of Allah. Then praising him or attacking him, we have to structure that properly in the next edition of Muawiyah orders the cursing of Ali on the pulpit. And if he fleshed it out and explicitly mentioning, I did not explicitly mention the current word which is in your hands possibly. Then the ones are essentially, like Salama said, you are, when someone from Iraq said, does anyone from your city insult the Messenger of Allah? Said, Ma'ad Allah. How can anyone insult the Messenger of Allah? Seeing the ayah. Said, yes. Because the Messenger, I hear the Messenger saying, who hates Ali or who insults Ali is insulting me. So this is a special standing for Abu Talib. And this is established by many other things, making him level of tawatur. The hadith, you will be in the rank to me like Harun to Musa. This is the rank of prophethood, but not prophethood. وَلَا نَبِيَّ بَعْدِي. So the same place, the same connection, the same protection from insult and so on. So if you take all of that, this is an act of kufr. It's not just a grave sin and fabrication. It is an act of kufr. It's an act of kufr. And it's committed by Muawiyah. Actually, we have a narration that Salama wrote to Muawiyah, said, you are insulting, you are cursing Ali and insulting him in the pulpits. And you insult also anyone who loves him. So by insulting Ali and who love him, you insulting Messenger of Allah. Because Messenger of Allah, a witness by Allah, the Messenger said, I love Ali, and I hate who hate Ali. You are setting between Allah. And the narrator say he didn't care about that, he throw away her letter. So he's committing absolute kufr in that. So that's the reason Khamis is evil enough and knowledgeable enough to know if we attribute that Bani Umayyah, there is no escape that comes from Muawiyah initially. There's no escape. It's done, finished. And if it's to Muawiyah, then the catastrophe is there, which they are trying to avoid by their life. And then most of their deen and their state philosophy and obedience to the ruler will flow away. Starting with Muawiyah and anyone following his footsteps. But that's the only way they can escape. One of them, it is called Salim al-Tawil, said, they attack Muawiyah because he's the one established hereditary monarchy, although he gives it a quoting without the name and so on. So the attack is not against Muawiyah. Against hereditary monarchy, they use the attack against Muawiyah to attack hereditary monarchy. He said it openly. He's one of these Madkhali Jami. It's very clear. He said it in a television interview. That's the reason. So we have to protect Muawiyah. So we save you addressing the rulers. And they paid him very nicely back. Recently they imprisoned him. These are like toilet paper. They wipe their asses with it and throw them away. But they don't recognize that. They accept it to be disgraced by Allah for themselves. Allah disgraced them further. So this Salim Tawil, which is defending the rulers over, the same may happen down the road to Khamis. He will be thrown away like a used toilet paper. Now he's very good in wiping their ass. Okay, usable. He will keep. When anything happens, it's not a calling. The same with this guy who said, even if the rulers fornicate and commit sodomy publicly in television, 1 hour full, you can see it. That's not a reason to disobey him. The same guy, for some other reason, I don't know what's it, is now imprisoned. These are toilet papers to be thrown away.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway,
I mean, look at the UAE, for example. They've got the Islamic face right now, but that's going to go. I mean, example, I was watching a video. The amount of intelligence, you know, the brother mentioned Hasbara. UAE are pushing their own Hasbara heavily. Sheikh, you might not like this. I watched a recent video by that.
We'll discuss that in the video. Just enough of this filth. Let us go to.
Okay. Also, just another one. Somebody sent a link about for a video. The one that you sent was Ustad Abdul Rahman. He's a standard Wahhabi. Standard. He did a 10-hour video just on the issue of obedience to rulers. I don't discredit him as a personality, but unfortunately, he is mired in the same nonsense.
Okay,
so yeah,
we'll start Muhasab.com and see what's there. And as I said, it's a very old, outdated version. It needs to be updated, and the update will be completely annihilated. But this already have enough annihilation of this anyway.
Sure. Also, to the brother who says, if you find anything substantive, because there's loads of obscure people out there, probably not worth commenting. But if you find something substantive that needs to that warrants discussion, I'll add it to the list. There's quite a few videos I want to plan, inshallah, and we can add it to that.
And send it usual way to rush.
Yeah, I've given him my Telegram, inshallah. Okay. Also, one other quick one. Somebody's got a question in relation to. So there's a brother who's got a cousin who's a female cousin who's not really practicing. And there's been a fallout over the issue of him. Let me just bring up the actual. So he has a relative who boycotted him for speaking the truth about the Islamic position on homosexuality and the harms of some actions. So one of his cousins, who's secular or anti-Islamic, has boycotted him. My current attitude is he's raised his bridge. He's not. Is he obliged to reach out to that person to mend the bridges? Is there any obligation?
No, he's obliged. All that he's obliged is not to break. The guy broke. He can abstain from any communication if he wish, but he's not obliged to keep bridges. Just maybe call for Eid Mubarak, and that's it. That's enough.
So it's a female cousin. So I mean, it's a cousin. So I mean, what's the? I mean, I know you got the
It
obligation.
doesn't not a female. It just doesn't include male or female.
I thought with Theatre Rahman, that would be a special, like aunties and things like that, but have a special.
No, cousins also. Yeah, cousins also.
Includes cousins. Yeah,
Second
okay.
cousins, third cousins, uncle, grand uncle, great uncle, all the relation, clear relation up to maybe 10 members up, according to the level. That you are encouraged not to accept their breaking or their insult, like you are stingy, he's doing his that. Then you should gloss over that and try to be charitable to them. That's it. But if it comes to a matter of aqidah and they forsake because of that, actually you should have been broken with them because of their point of view in that sense. So I'm not going, I don't accept your point of view. I will limit it only salam alaikum wa alaikum salam. But don't expect me to visit you. Don't expect me to come to the hospital if you are sick. No. Because you are essentially out of the well-established by necessity of Islamic point of view and creed. So I regard you are in danger for your own creed. That's it. That's it. So that question is no. Salatul Rahim does not mean that just the opposite. The Quran is clear about Ibrahim and his and the people around him, how they disassociate ideologically. That's not, they were not in war with their own people. But they said, Kafarna bikum ma ta'udun, we reject that, reject you and reject what you worship beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And between us and you will be ideological hatred until you return back to Tawheed. That's it. Strictly. There was exception for Ibrahim because for his father, and Quran mentioned the reasons, but that's it. Period, full stop. There was no war with Ibrahim and his people. He just left the country and immigrated. That's it. That was enough for separation.
Okay, let's go on to Palestine update now. I've got some questions, but they're quite going to be long, so it's probably better to save for, yeah. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to go off camera and stop the stream. And if anyone wants a question, I mean, unfortunately, we can't always get to the questions, but every month we have the full-on Q&A anyway, inshallah. And also, on a related note, the Sheikh mentioned about accounting rulers. Remember, tomorrow we're starting that entire book. So it'll be fascinating. It'll be live streamed as well, inshallah. So if you're able, 8 p.m. inshallah tomorrow. So if you're able to join, or you can join on YouTube, most welcome. And what we are doing here is we're loading up bullets to end the menace of government scholars. These are things to scorched earth with them. Because, sorry, just a brief segue. We are products of our times. In the 80s, 70s, 80s, millions, now billions were spent to push a certain narrative, which serves a certain agenda. And the doctor mentions about toilet paper. Now they are going to become toilet paper. So this was the Saudi Salafi phenomenon. The Saudis are using it. The UAE are using it. The UAE are shameless. There's a level of nifaq you cannot even fathom from the UAE. So UAE, it's entirely possible that they'll even dispense with this much sooner, because Islam is nothing to them. Islam is just a tool for them. If they could become public atheists tomorrow, there'd be no problem for them, because they're going back to Jahiliyyah. They're Abu Jahls. The regime, not the people, but the regime.
They stand now in the war, and we'll come to that update. If you listen to it, you'll see what I mean. It's so sneaky, so munafiq, that they are spared even from attacks.
So the point is that to destroy this menace requires. So what happened was, history happened, and a certain point of view was pushed to the fore. Just like when we went through the entire Kitab Tawheed, looking at the arguments that Abdul Wahhab used, you realize they're vacuous. They're a mirage. You go towards it, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. I can say that with confidence, having gone through the entire 4 volumes. Same with this issue of obedience to the rulers. There's nothing there. To destroy this edifice requires a bit of detail. And inshallah, that's what our job is. When I don't, my brothers asked about Tajdeed. Tajdeed isn't it? It's an idea. It's an idea. It's idea. It's a material. It's not a fully fledged organized group. You are the group. You are Tajdeed. You are the voice. You are the ideas. The ones who propagate the ideas. What we will do is provide you the ammunition. So from tomorrow 8 p.m. this will be So 450 to 900 pages altogether, but 450 of it will be English, approximately, in detail on the issue of accounting rulers. After that will be other material. Well, this stuff is for your benefit. It's for you to... We don't have anything other than a voice. Even the channels that we have active algorithm suppression on them. The last channel got to 8,955. I remember I personally uploaded 1,000 videos. All of that went. So we're redoing that again. But the big material. So the point is, it's an uphill struggle. There is no one helping us. All we ask from you is that you propagate the message. That's the most important thing. I've got a fiber. I've got a rubbishy webcam. Doc's got a webcam. We've got a mic. That's good enough for us. All we ask is to project the voice, because we all have a part to play in demolishing the mentality, and it's about reviving the proper understanding, and we can all do this. Just as the Sheikh mentioned, that this entire mentality of Salaf this, Salaf that is based on nothing. It's not. It's a nothing burger. The Shia have their infallible 12 Imams. The Saudis have their infallible Lajna and their holy cow of Salaf, which has nothing. There's nothing there. It's Kitab and Sunnah. So you are all partners in this, inshallah. Sorry, just a slight segue.